Good evening, everyone. It is 5:30. It's time to begin the special meeting. I call this meeting to order. Roll call, Ms. Rhonda.
Dr. Reddick.
Here.
Mrs. McLean.
Here.
Mrs. Malcolm.
Here.
Mr. Taylor.
Here.
Mrs. Temple.
Here.
Mrs. Williams.
Here.
Ms. Person West.
Present.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is executive closed session. Executive closed session per North Florida School District Policy 1.14A stating that private or closed discussions by the board may occur as part of a regular or special board meeting. Executive sessions may be held only for the purpose of considering employment, appointment, promotion, demotion, disciplining, or resignation of an employee, or to discuss matters of pupil punishment, if requested by the parent or legal guardian. No resolution, agreement, or motion considered in the executive session shall be legally binding unless the board reconvenes in public session and presents the item for vote of the membership. Finally, Arkansas Code Title 25, Chapter 19, Section 106(2)(c)(1) states, the specific purpose of the executive session shall be announced in public before going into executive session. Please join me in the executive closed session for discussing the following matters: employment, appointment, promotion, demotion, disciplining, or resignation of an employee. We are back in session. We're down to action items. The first one is employment of personnel.
Madam President, members of our Board of Education, action item 4.1, the employment of personnel. Superintendent recommends the employment of personnel as discussed in executive closed session.
Madam President,
Yes, ma'am.
I so move that we accept the employment of personnel.
Second.
It has been properly moved in second that we accept the employment of personnel. Being that it is personnel, there can be no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes. 4.2, middle school construction manager company.
So we'll welcome, Mr. Brown could not be here, but Colonel Stanger, Chief of Staff, and our colleagues from Taggart Architecture, Brom Cahey, and James Myers. So I will turn it over to you, gentlemen.
Madam Chair, can I make a statement before we get started here?
Sure.
I just want you to know that the board would like to thank Taggart Architects firm, especially James Meyer and Brom, for all the leadership they provided in this search for the construction management companies. We're wanting to be very open and transparent in all that we do for the 3 building projects. And the committee formed for this task was very diverse. We had Brian Brown, our CFO, Chief Finks, the Director of Safety and Security, Mr. Isaiah Washington, Administrative Director of Facilities and Maintenance, Colonel Stanger, Chief of Staff, and 3 board members, Angela Person West, Natalie Wonkum, and Dr. Rochelle Redis. But I have to add that James and Brom reached out to the whole board and said, if you have questions that you want to be asked, please send them to us, and they will be asked. And you also invited the board members to come and sit in on the interviews if we wanted to. So I also want to say that we noted that the companies have diversity in their employees and the subcontractors that they use, and I thought that was something important to share with all of our stakeholders. And just thank James and Brom again for your guidance.
Thank you very much.
I didn't know we
Thank
had
you.
a statement. That was good. News to me.
That's how we roll.
I mean, surprise.
Yep, go ahead, gentlemen.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
You might want to
You
move
might
that.
want to move
I was
it up
gonna
so
say,
that the online people
Short
can hear.
adjustment. We're going to try what we can. All right. So I just wanted to first say we also appreciate your board and your engagement on the selection process. It is uncommon that we have 3 board members come and spend multiple afternoons with us, sitting through hours of interviews and going through all the process. So we appreciate how much you care and the time and effort that you put into this, especially adding the fact that we had 2 additional board members come and sit through multiple sessions. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of work, and so we are appreciative that you were there and guided us through this process. And so this first page, I want to give you kind of an overview summary of how it works, and then we will go into it, and there's a second document with more information. So this page is an overall summary of the final ranked choice selections for each project. And so, as you can see up at the top, there are pairs of boxes, and so the top long box is a summary of the first choice, second choice, and third choice for each juror who was there at the event. And so that's seat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Because of the way that we tabulated the scores, seat 1 on the middle school project is not the same juror as seat 1 on the Old Main project. So these things rotate around. But what you will see on the middle school project is that the Nabholes and Doing team secured 5 first place votes, and the Baldwin and Shell team secured 2 first place votes. Clark received none on that application. And so moving on to the Old Main project, or I guess I should close with, that is the selection committee's recommendation to proceed with entering into negotiations with the Nabholes Doing team for the middle school project. So moving on to the Old Main. Yes, ma'am?
Because we have it separated,
Okay.
then we need to make a motion
So-
separately.
We want to just talk about that first project?
Yes.
That's great. Can we go to the second document real quick for me? Perfect. And if you can zoom in on that top page. And so just for y'all's education, information, and just complete transparency, what you see here is those same columns on the right, tabulating the ranked choice, and then on the left side are the 5 categories that were identified for the evaluation criteria for oral presentation. That was part of the request for qualifications that was advertised in the paper, sent out. We got responses. The selection committee narrowed down to this short list for interview. And so that first category is proposed staff and functions. That was worth 25 points. The second category was project administration and information. That was worth 20 points. The third category was scheduling the project. That's worth 25 points. The fourth category was the work plan. It was worth 25 points. And the fifth category was references, which was worth 5 points. And so in the 3 columns next to that, you see the average score for each one of the interview slots. And so the first column was for Baldwin and Shell. Their average score was 87.29. The second column was for the Nabholz and Doyne team, which was 96.43. And the third column was for Clark, which was 82.86. And so just trying to give you as much information as possible. This is how the committee arranged to his decision and his recommendation. Great.
Is there a motion?
Madam President,
Yes, ma'am.
I so move that we accept Nabholz and Doyne for the middle school project.
Second.
It has been properly moved in second that we accept Nabholz and Doyne for the middle school construction manager company recommendation. Is there any discussion? There be no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes. Thank you, Nabholz and Doyne. Congratulations. You want to stand so the board members that weren't here know who you are.
Thank you very much for placing your trust and confidence in us. We're looking forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The next is Old Main Construction Manager Company.
All right. So now let's start on this one. All the same rules as the previous project. You can see the ranked choice by the 7 voting selection committee members up at the top. The summary is below that. We have 4 first place votes for the CDI and Platinum team. We have 2 for Nabholz and Doyne, and we have 1 for Baldwin and Shell. If we can go to the second page, I'll just quickly review the scoring for everyone. Perfect. Great. Thank you so much. And so all the rules same apply. They are the same criteria. They have the same amount of points assigned to them. The first interview slot was CDI and Platinum. They had an average score of 97. And they were our high score for the day. The second team was Nabholz and Doyne. Their score was 95.57. And then the third interview slot was Baldwin and Shell, who received 82.71.
Yes, there. So it's CDI, if I'm correct.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The recommendation of the committee is CDI and Platinum.
CDI and Plat. Is there a motion?
Would you explain it? Go back again and explain it. It's something I don't understand.
Yes, ma'am.
Over on that section where it says rate
Ranked choice totals.
Tell me, what do you mean by seat ones?
Oh, that's CDI.
So,
Okay, then.
Seat 1, Seat
That
2,
was
Seat
a
3.
thing,
She
okay.
just is,
That was abbreviation for NAPO in those places.
yeah.
Yes,
First,
ma'am.
second,
Yeah.
third. Thank you.
Madam President, I so move that we accept the recommendation of CDI and Platinum for the Old Main project.
Second.
It has been properly moved in second that we accept CDI Platinum for the Old Main Construction Project as construction manager. Any discussion? There be no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, CDI and Platinum. Would you stand so we'll know who you are?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Trust and confidence as well, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank
On
you.
renovating that historic landmark.
Thank you. We're down to the Indoor Sports and Activity Center Construction Manager Company.
Yes, ma'am. And so as you can see here, for the ranked choice summary totals, 6 of the evaluators selected Clark as their first place. 1 split their first place votes with Naples as well, and then Baldwin Shell received the final first place vote. So if we can go to the other document. Great, thank you, sir. And so in the first interview slot of the day, Navajos and Doyne secured 92.86%. Baldwin and Shell had 82.71%, and Clark Contractors had 98.43%. And so it is the selection committee. I'm having a hard time with that today. It's the selection committee's recommendation to move forward with negotiations with Clark for this project.
Madam President,
Yes, ma'am.
I so move that we accept Clark Construction for the indoor athletic facility.
Second.
It has been properly moved in second that we accept Clark for the Indoor Sports and Activity Center as the construction manager company. Any discussion?
Question.
Yes.
What was item number 2, project administration and information? Can you tell me a little, what was that talking about?
So what that's largely talking about is how the contractor communicates with the owner and the architecture and engineering team. And so what information do they gather? When is it shared? How is it shared? What technology do they use to acquire that? In other tools and tricks that they have within the trade. Does that begin to answer your question?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I was looking to see if there's any diversity in the subcontracting and contracting and things like that.
Yes, sir. And so that was part of the.
Is that one of those items as well?
It was not an individual item in
Okay.
that list, but it was integrated in all the discussions that we had. And so many of the questions that we had during the interviews related to engagement with minority-owned businesses and small business corporations, and how can we foster and engage their involvement in the project. And Clark, in particular, for this project, had a really long discussion about how trade packages can be broken up and how they can be fitted and sized to appropriately target small businesses in the way that they've done that on previous projects. And the district staff and board members who were there were very interested in that. And so we went through a long discussion about how they build that in to the front end portion of their bidding.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions?
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, in this, like the proposed staff function, I see that in the projected administration fact. Why, in your reference, and you know what's gonna come up, we had no indicator as far as savings of what a company could do for us. You know what I'm saying? We
I
had that
think so,
discussion.
yes.
And why was it not implemented in this program overall? Because the reason I'm asking that, I know most of the companies only offered one year of warranty, and we had another company who offered 3, and then there was the other company offered 0 in case we got into anything. And so that to me should have been a part of this as far as the strengths that we needed, because we may have $30 million, but if all 3 companies should, accidents always happen. It always happen in building.
Yes,
But Mr. Brown, as he said, you'd have to take that $30 million and spread it around. And so to me, the only part that I see that would have been significant is a part of savings. Now, I did see a couple companies that said they had produced the savings in what they had done, you know, in their previous building.
Yes, ma'am.
But I thought that that certainly should have been an integral part for this building process, if we're to save money, to have money after we have built. So that was my concern, okay, and thank you,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Taggart.
Just a quick comment.
Taggart.
Where there is a slippery slope, and when things are being proposed as cost and savings, and we cannot negotiate costs before the end of the or before the end of the interview period. Negotiations need to happen during that contract portion. And if you recall, during those meetings, we had discussion with multiple other contractors that warranties are defined by the specifications, which is something that comes from us. And so if your district wants to require more than the standard 1-year warranty period, that is something that can be incorporated into that.
I know that
Okay.
we had discussed that point. I was merely saying it should have been an integral part of this because you can't say what you're gonna do. But I know one company said there would be zero cost on us. And these are important things to anybody who's building, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
And thank you
Recognize.
so
We'll do
much
better
for
the
your
next one.
answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? You made the motion, didn't you?
I did.
Thank you.
Second, yes, ma'am.
Yep, you had discussion, so you're, ready to vote.
We good. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Roll call, Ms. Rhonda.
Dr. Reddis,
Aye.
Ms. McLean,
Aye.
Ms. Markham,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor,
No.
Ms. Temple. Aye. Ms. Williams,
No.
Ms. Person West,
Aye.
It's 5-2. It passes. Congratulations, Clark. Where are you?
Thank you all for your confidence. We've been pursuing you guys for about 12 years, and we're very excited to team up with you and looking forward to getting to work.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
thank you. We are down to, thank you guys, thank you. I'm sorry, we're trying to roll it, keep it rolling. We're down to employee hearing number 1.
We'll kind of just transition out.
Yes.
Should we take a 5-minute recess?
Yeah,
to
I would,
transition?
yeah, I think it's a good
We're
idea.
gonna take a 5-minute recess until we trans.
Everybody else can
We're online.
Okay. Before I make the opening statement, I would ask everyone to silence all of their communication devices, and just to be a good example, I'm gonna do it myself. If you do receive a call, please step outside of the room to carry on the conversation. This meeting is called for the purpose of hearing the recommendation of the superintendent of the employment contract of an employee of the North Little Rock School District, Miss Mary Lee Dennis, be terminated. Ms. Dennis is represented by attorney Dylan Bodicher. Did I get your last name right?
It's Boddicker, but it was very close.
Boddicker, my apologies. The administration is represented by attorney Jay Beckett, who will assist the administration in its presentation. The procedure will be for the superintendent to make his recommendation of termination, and then the superintendent or another administrator will set forth the reasons for the termination. When the administrator's statement is completed, the witness may be questioned by the employee's representative and then by the board members themselves. The procedure will be followed for each additional witness the administration calls, if any. When the administration's presentation is completed, the employee may go forward with her own statement and the statement of others she intends to call. Anyone making a statement on behalf of the employee may be questioned by the administration's attorney and by the board. Since the law makes no provisions for formal cross-examination, the questioning will be done in an informal and conversational manner. At the conclusion of this presentation, the attorneys may make closing statements with a reply by the administration's attorney. Once again, the purpose of the hearing is to bring before the board the recommendation that the employment contract of Ms. Dennis be terminated, and only matters relevant to the recommendation will be permitted. All right, Mr. Beckett, if you'd like to begin.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Richardson. So, as a preliminary matter, as you can see from the exhibit list that the administration has tendered to the board, we originally had planned on having 2 personnel hearings tonight. The administration was going to propose that the hearings be combined because both termination recommendations arose out of the same set of operative facts. However, late this afternoon, Mr. Josh Clements advised the administration that he no longer wished to contest the recommendation and tendered a resignation. So the hearing tonight will only be about Ms. Dennis. So in that regard, we can pretty much strike exhibit number 2, the termination letter involving Mr. Clements. The board won't be taking that up, but it is relevant to the proceedings tonight. And then we're going to maybe call our first witness, Mr. Richardson.
Please proceed.
And that will be the man seated to my right, Mr. Jacob Smith. Mr. Smith?
Yes, sir.
Please state your name and your position in the district for the record.
Yes, sir. My name is Jacob Smith. I'm the Executive Director of Human Resources for the North Little Rock School District.
Can you explain to the board, Mr. Smith, how the administration learned of the matters involving Ms. Dennis, when you learned about them and how you learned about them?
Yes, sir. So there was an anonymous call placed to Dr. Paluski, who was apprised of the matter, and he then brought me into the loop in regards to what had been alleged, and we conducted our own investigation, as is our normal process.
All right, and if you turn to Exhibit 1 on page 1, identify this record, please.
This would be the termination notice delivered to Ms. Dennis on April 25th, 2025.
All right, and number 1 talks about the fact that the district learned that Ms. Dennis, who is the Director of Child Nutrition, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Was having an affair with one of her subordinates, Josh Clements. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And who is Josh Clements?
Josh Clements is the coordinator in food and nutrition, the second in command.
Is Ms. Dennis Mr. Clements' immediate supervisor?
She is.
Mr. Clements reported to Ms. Dennis.
That is correct.
Okay. And then the administration, during its investigation, conducted interviews of both Ms. Dennis and Mr. Clements, correct?
Yes, sir.
They both admitted to the affair, is that correct?
That is correct.
So anyone, any administrator who directly supervises an employee, such as Ms. Dennis with Mr. Clements, that supervisor is responsible for conducting the job evaluation of the subordinate, correct?
That is correct.
That supervisor is responsible for approving any request for leave, is that correct?
That is correct.
Ms. Dennis was responsible for approving Mr. Clements' request for reimbursements.
That is correct.
Ms. Dennis was responsible for supervising Mr. Clements' work.
That is correct.
Ms. Dennis was responsible for approving any compensatory leave that Mr. Clements would receive. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Let's turn now, or actually at the bottom of page 1, it also talks about a second reason for the recommendation is, and talk about the reports from staff members that they smelled alcohol on or about Mr. Clements during the work.
Yes, sir. So as we went down the process of conducting our investigation, it was determined from multiple reports that individuals had communicated with Ms. Dennis that there was a smell of alcohol at different times on Mr. Clements, and that information had never been communicated with Human Resources, to my knowledge, or any other direct supervisor of Ms. Dennis, and we had no facts associated with any sort of investigation or anything of that nature associated with that claim.
All right, then turn to page 5.
Yes, sir.
All right, what is this document? Looks like it's 2 pages.
Yes, sir. This is, I believe, Ms. Dennis's statement.
All right, now I want to go through a few things on page 5. What did Ms. Dennis have to say about approving leave?
She said you can pull the e-finance reports that show I have not approved any of Mr. Clements' leave. Ms. Bryant enters this information in just like she does every other employee in the office. Employees in the office do ask me if they can take this day or that day off, and I almost always provide a yes response, as it is not a big, as long as it is not a big day within the department for us, and the requested day does not go against the sick, personal, classified school board policies 8.05 and 8.07. This is the same process all employees in the child nutrition office utilize. That has not been any unequal leave preference given to Mr. Clements.
So as the head of human resources in the district, Mr. Smith, is it one of the supervisor's responsibilities to approve leave requests of their subordinates?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
All right, so the first statement here toward the bottom of page 5, where Ms. Dennis says she has not approved of any of Mr. Clements' leave, that statement is demonstrably false, correct?
Yes, sir. I would believe, to clarify upon that, it would be stated that while Ms. Bryant, her administrative assistant, could be assigned with the task of entering it in, the ultimate responsibility of approval and governing of the process is Ms. Dennis's.
And the same question with regard to approving mileage reports. Again, Ms. Dennis seems to deflect to other people in the department for completing or approving those reports, but approving mileage or any other reimbursements to a subordinate would be done by the supervisor, correct?
Yes, Ms. Dennis would be the first stamp of approval in that process.
And then turning the page over to page 6, there's a section in the middle of the page called completing evaluation. And there it says, or Ms. Dennis says, that no evaluations for the current school year have been completed yet. But is it Ms. Dennis's responsibility under district policy and district practice and procedure that a supervisor evaluates subordinates, such as in this case, Ms. Dennis would be evaluating Mr. Clements?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just for informational purposes, page 7, what is the document on page 7?
This is Mr. Clemens' statement. that was acquired through the investigation.
And then turning to page 8. What is this record?
This is a statement provided by Mr. Bo Adams.
And what is Mr. Adams' position in the district?
Yes, sir, he is our child nutrition warehouse manager.
Now, Mr. Adams' statement indicates that he did hear about allegations that Ms. Dennis and Mr. Clements were having an affair, correct?
That is correct.
What I wanted you to focus on is the last paragraph of Mr. Adams' statement where he talks about Mr. Clements smelling like alcohol throughout the day, and that he understood that Ms. Bryant had spoken to Ms. Dennis about it, but that Ms. Dennis blew it off like it was no big deal. Is that what Mr. Adams stated to you during your interview of him?
That is my understanding, yes, sir.
All right. And then let's turn to Exhibit 6, beginning on page 9. This looks like a 2-page statement from Tia Bryant. Who is Tia Bryant?
She is the administrative assistant to Mary Lee Dennis in the child nutrition department.
All right, and it looks like in the middle of page 9, Ms. Bryant alludes to Ms. Dennis's then husband making contact with Ms. Bryant, inquiring about whether Ms. Dennis and Ms. Clements were involved in a romantic relationship. Do you see that statement?
Yes, sir.
And then again,
Mr.
I'm sorry.
Beckett, hang on one second.
Yes, ma'am.
Where are you on, you
Middle-
said page 9?
Middle of page 9.
I'm,
So I mentioned that Mary Lee Dennis?
yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Paragraph, okay,
yes, ma'am.
okay. I'm sorry, I was trying to catch up.
Right, so that appears to be, and Ms. Bryant's here, she can testify to this, but Ms. Bryant indicates that she had a conversation sometime back in the fall with Ms. Dennis's then husband, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now let's turn to page 10. At the top there, we get another statement about alcohol. Do you see that?
I do.
Tell the board what Ms. Bryant advised you during your investigation about the allegations of Josh Clements smelling like alcohol on the job.
That several people on the team had made statements about Josh and that Mr. Clements smelling of alcohol, and that they had been informed to Miss Dennis.
So here we have multiple employees making allegations that there were that they had smelled alcohol on Josh Clements' breath, and that Miss Dennis was informed. Were you advised by Miss Dennis as to whether or not she had conducted any kind of investigation into allegations that Mr. Clements had been drinking alcohol on the job?
No, sir.
All right, so let's go to page 11. And following page 11 are several photographs, which I believe are related to page 11. So if you could tell us, Mr. Smith, what page 11 constitutes and the photos following that.
Yes, sir. Page 11, which is Exhibit 7 and 8. Page 11, Exhibit 7 is a summary that attempts to communicate referencing the pictures that are contained within Exhibit 8. It is our process whenever we receive an allegation. We have privately contracted investigators that would follow up on said allegations. And what this is a place of residence that was communicated to us. And through the course of this investigation by our private investigators, we found that both Mr. Clements' car and Miss Dennis's car were found to be in the same housing space over a night period.
Okay, and do you know who drafted the content on page 11?
I know it would be one of our two investigators that work for us, but I do not have a clarity which one actually drafted this content, no.
All right, and then there are a number of vehicles identified. Is the Chevrolet truck the Chevrolet S10 truck, is that Mr. Clements' vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And then the newer model gray Mercedes SUV, is that Miss Dennis's vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And then going through these photographs, the house depicted is where Miss Dennis and Mr. Clements appeared to be living?
That is my understanding.
And then the pickup truck and the SUV, those are Mr. Clements and Ms. Dennis's vehicles.
As I understand it, yes.
All right. So now let's turn to Exhibit 9, beginning on page 21. What are we looking at here in Exhibit 9?
Yes, sir. We're looking at Mr. Clement's leave report.
Okay, and what is the relevance to this?
To show all the leave that was entered across these 2 fiscal years.
Okay, and then Exhibit number 10 on pages 23 and 24. What are these records?
These are Miss Dennis's leave report, which communicates the same thing. And it's actually more than 2 fiscal years, but it goes more than 1 page.
And then there's some things underlined, some dates underlined in both records on page 22 and page 24. Is there any significance to that?
Yes, sir. It's my understanding upon further investigation, I believe it's February 10th specifically, there was a leave date placed in which Mr. Clements was identified as the point of contact for Miss Dennis, and then Mr. Clements took that day off as well. And so I believe there's also a conjunction in regards to those other days as well.
For the same reason?
Yes, sir.
They both took the same days off.
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Smith, let's turn to page 25. This is Exhibit 11. What is this form?
This is our overtime and compensatory time authorization form.
All right, and we actually, the board has a policy that relates to this form. Is that correct?
It does.
And you'll find that at page 40. Page 40 is the overtime, comp time, and complying with Fair Labor Standards Act, policy 8.11, approved by this board, correct?
That is correct.
All right. So what I'd like to do now is turn the page to pages 26 and 27.
Yes, sir.
Page 26 has the name Mary Lee handwritten on it. What does this page show?
This was identified as the tracking of compensatory time, which there was not a proper record keeping in regards to that process. It's being done on a spreadsheet, and there was no communication, I believe, with Ms. Dennis's direct supervisor, as is required by the form and the policy, that this compensatory time was being tracked in this way or approved as is required by the policy.
I mean, if you turn back to page 25, this form for compensatory time authorization and approval, it has a signature line for the supervisor and for the Executive Director of Human Resources.
That is correct.
That's your position.
Yes, sir.
So you're supposed to approve of any comp time issued to district employees, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And also Colonel Stanger would have to be involved as Ms. Dennis's immediate supervisor, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, did you have any knowledge before your investigation started of these records on pages 26 and 27?
No, sir. It's my understanding that the only individual that had access to this form was Ms. Dennis.
And in order for compensatory time to be awarded to a district employee, you have to approve it and the immediate supervisor has to approve it.
Yes, sir. It would start with the immediate supervisor and then work its way to me.
And you've discussed this with Colonel Stanger. Did Colonel Stanger have any knowledge whatsoever about compensatory time being awarded in the Child Nutrition Department to Mary Lee Dennis and to Josh Clemens?
He did not.
And did you have any knowledge of compensatory time records being kept and awarded to Ms. Dennis and Mr. Clemens?
No, sir. I didn't have any idea of these records.
Now let's turn to exhibit number 12 on page 28. What is this record?
Yes, sir. This is snippets of our purchase order of approval process, and this has to do with any purchase orders that would be approved, such as mileage being paid out to employees and things of that nature, which I believe is the specifics of this specific conversation.
All right, and so Ms. Dennis, during her interview and in her statement, she said that she wasn't involved in the approval of Mr. Clements' mileage, correct?
Correct.
But if you look at we apologize for the fine print, but this is the only way we could get this document to print.
It's very fine, but we're gonna do our best.
Do you see 4 instances on exhibit number 12 entitled Purchase Order Approvals?
The top
There is-
2 have Miss Dennis and Miss Estes in the chain.
And who is Dennis M?
That is Mary Lee Dennis.
And who is Estes?
Jennifer Estes is the individual that governs our federal program funds.
Okay. And so Ms. Dennis had to sign off on this purchase order approval.
Correct. And then the below one is from prior years in which Mr. Logan was in that chain and Miss Rubel was over that.
Okay. Now let's go to page 29. What does this document depict?
This is a document denoting all of the instances in which partial pay for travel was awarded to Mr. Clements.
And this page looks like to be during the 23-24 school year, correct?
That is correct.
And if you go to page 30, are these approvals for Mr. Clements' mileage reimbursement request?
That is correct.
And then at the third column from the right, this looks like they were for the 24-25 school year, the current school year. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I believe that was to date.
Okay, and these were all payments made to Mr. Clements for mileage. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, and page 28, the prior page shows that Ms. Dennis was involved in the approvals of these payments. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Now then, let's turn to pages 31 and 32. What are these pages about?
These are the amounts that are associated with the district mileage. And you can notice that these are the spanning of 2 different times, which communicates up at the top. One is in 6/14 of 23. The other one is 5/23 of 24. And you can see that Josh Clements is the recipient of this compensation, and the attention notice below the school district address is attention to Mary Lee Dennis.
Right, Food Service Department, attention Ms. Dennis, because she's the director, correct?
Correct.
In these documents, according to the upper right-hand part of the page, these are the actual purchase orders, correct?
Yes, sir.
And they go directly to the Food Service Department, attention Miss Mary Lee Dennis.
That is correct.
And then I guess 32 looks like the same form, but just a different, it's from last year.
Correct.
Okay. And then if you would turn to pages 33 and 34.
That is a better depiction of the approval process that correlates with that purchase order number that we just looked at.
Okay, again, so we're seeing Dennis M., 2 instances where Dennis M. was involved in the approval process on page 33, and 2 instances where Ms. Dennis was involved in the approval process on page 34. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Okay. So now we go to Exhibit 13, page 35. What is this record?
Yes, sir. So this is our, this was divulged during the investigation as well.
Is this the work leave log?
Yes, that's what I was looking for the name of it. The work leave log, correct.
And so what is a work leave log?
So this is a log, which is my understanding is the attendance associated with all of the individuals in the child nutrition department.
Okay, and we see, you know, a mention here of Josh Clements in the middle of the page.
What?
In at 9:49, work till 9:42.
Yes, sir. So really the main essence of this is if the board will look on the right-hand side, this document was very large. This is just a snippet of this. But what we are attempting to show here is on the right side, you will see that there are track changes associated in this document. And Ms. Dennis communicated that she did not have anything to do with the tracking of changes within the Department of Leave and things of that nature. And so what Google does is it physically timestamps every time there's an adjustment to said document. And you can see Ms. Dennis is in there 3 out of 4 days making adjustments at multiple times.
So despite Ms. Dennis's statements to you during the investigation that she was not involved in the work leave situations, this record clearly shows that she was.
She clearly has access to it.
Now then, turn to Exhibit 16 on page 38. What is this record?
Yes, sir. This is our signature page that is associated with our employee handbook.
And Ms. Dennis acknowledged that she'd received the employee handbook, and she dated it September 5, 2024.
Yes, sir. She signed, I understand the policies and rules and benefits described in the handbook, and she acknowledged her receipt, and she understood that her signature meant that she had read and understood all of the above statements.
All right, then turn to Exhibit 18 on page 40.
Yes, sir.
And you referenced this before. This is Board Policy 8.11, the overtime comp time in complying with Fair Labor Standards Act. Is there any comments you'd like to make to the board about this policy?
Sure. On page 42, the second paragraph, second full paragraph, it states at the beginning, provided the employee and the district have a written agreement or understanding before work is performed of compensatory time may be awarded in lieu of overtime pay for hours worked over 40 in a work week and shall be awarded on a 1.5 time basis for each hour of overtime work. So that goes back to reference the form that was issued and the importance of that process.
And the importance of obtaining human resources approval and immediate supervisor approval before comp time is awarded.
Correct.
And then, you know, you have knowledge of this policy and the Fair Labor Standards Act, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you're aware of the distinction between exempt employees under the Fair Labor Standards Act and non-exempt employees,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes, sir, I am.
And employees who are exempt from the Fair Labor Standards Act include management personnel, correct?
That is correct.
And you would consider Ms. Dennis and Mr. Clements to be management personnel, correct?
That is how it's been described to me, yes, sir.
And both Mr. Clements and Ms. Dennis are paid well in excess of the amounts that would be allowed for to be non-exempt. In other words, the amounts paid to Dennis and Clements in annual salary exceeds the amount, you know, and therefore allows them to be exempt, correct?
That is correct.
All right, then turning to Exhibit 20 on page 48, this is simply the termination policy for classified employees that we're following tonight. Is that correct?
What page, sir? I'm sorry.
It's page 48, Exhibit 20.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
All right. Then the last exhibit in the book is Exhibit 21, beginning on page 50, where we have excerpts of the district's employee handbook. Do you see it, that?
I do.
Are there any things that you would like to point out to the board regarding the district's employee handbook?
Yes, on page 51, handbook page 21, packet page 51, under the ethics, social media, and conflict of interest section, beginning with the third sentence, beginning with the second sentence. Public employees hold a position of trust with responsibility that requires them to observe the highest ethical standards. Each employee is expected to conduct his or her personal affairs in a manner that avoids any conflict of interest or impropriety, or the appearance of conflict of interest or impropriety with the employee's work, including working relationships with other employees, students, parents, and members of the public, private vendors, consultants, contracts, or others. Examples of conflict of interest include, but are not limited to, the following, and then that last sentence below the bullets. Employees must immediately disclose to their supervisor any potential or actual conflicts of interest.
Mr. Smith, do you believe Ms. Dennis violated any portion of this section of the employee handbook?
Yes, sir.
Please explain why you believe that.
I believe there exists, not only from the perspective of just the paper trail associated with what transpired as far as time, logging of compensation, and things of that nature. There is a proprietary interest that is improper there between the working relationship between two individuals, one that are in a romantic relationship, and they supervise, one supervises the other. And then there is also the aspect that during this time, there was no informing of the relationship to anybody so that steps could be taken so that impropriety didn't exist. The handbook also reaches to not only conflicts of interest or impropriety, it also reaches to the appearance of a conflict of interest or impropriety.
And the personal and romantic relationship between Ms. Dennis and Mr. Clements, you believe, failed to live up to the high standard of ethical conduct in the North Little Rock District that we hold all employees to, but especially those in upper management positions who are responsible for supervising staff and have a significant budget oversight responsibility. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Embedded within the policies and the law, there is instances of power imbalance, quid pro quo harassment, and things of that nature, where coercion, favoritism, things of that nature come to light in regards to the power imbalance in the offering of consent.
Mr. Smith, I want to touch on something else that may have come up in your interviews with other employees in the department, specifically Bo Adams and Tia Bryant. Did they indicate to you at all in their interviews that when they and others in the department became aware of this relationship between Dennis and Clements, that the operations in that department became quite dysfunctional and disrupted?
Yes, sir. There were conversations not only about time and compensation, but accountability.
And I skipped over one of the policies, mistakenly skipped over Exhibit 19 on page 45, and you just alluded to it in your testimony briefly, but it's Policy 8.20, the Classified Personnel Sexual Harassment Policy. Are there any provisions in this policy that you think might be pertinent or are pertinent to this case and that you'd like to address the board about?
Yes, sir. So for the purposes of this policy, sexual harassment, this is beginning at right after the beginning of the second full paragraph. Sexual harassment means conduct that is, and if you go down to number 3, denies or limits students' or employees' ability to participate in or benefit from any of the district's educational programs or activities or employment environment through any or all of the following methods. Submission to the conduct made either explicitly or implicitly. B, submission to or rejection of such conduct by an individual is used as the basis of an academic or employment decision affecting that individual. And most importantly, C, such conduct has the purpose or effect of substantially interfering with an individual's, in this case, work performance, or creates intimidating, hostile, or an offensive environment.
All right, now, here we're dealing with what Ms. Dennis and Mr. Clements described as a consensual, personal, and romantic relationship, correct?
That's correct.
So how does this policy apply to a situation like that? Are you talking about other employees in the department that come into contact with Ms. Dennis and Mr. Clements?
Absolutely. What it does is it promotes an environment in which individuals do not feel safe and do not feel as if they can communicate in a manner where there is a true form of accountability. There's favoritism, and there is a relationship that is not proper, an imbalance of power, so to speak.
Mr. Smith, is there anything further that you would like to say?
Not at this time.
All right, well, I think Ms. Dennis's counsel and the board may have questions for you.
Mr. Boddicker, you may inquire the witness.
Thank you, Mr. S- Is it?
Yeah.
I just need to speak into it a little more.
I
Bring
think
it
it's
closer
more,
to you.
I think it's more for the YouTube than it is for.
My parents may be watching, so I wanted to be sure to let them have their moment.
Make sure you put
Mr.
it
Smith,
on
my name's Dylan Boddicker. I represent Miss Dennis. You said that an anonymous person called to give the district information about the matter. Who is this anonymous person?
The individual wished to be remain anonymous.
Did you all ask how this person had this information?
I was not part of that conversation.
Who was?
Dr. Paluski,
Is he here?
I believe he is.
Is he going to testify?
Mr. Beckett.
You don't know.
I don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Beckett. Mr. Smith, did Mr. Paluski tell you who he thought might have made the call?
We did not have a conversation surrounding the aspects beyond what the facts were communicated in the allegation.
So that was not part of your investigation?
No, it was not part of my investigation.
Did it come up through your investigation that Ms. Dennis's ex-husband was calling employees of the district to tell the employees he believed that she was having sex with someone?
It did. It's in the statements that were provided.
Did you ever try to ascertain if he was the one who made the initial call?
We did not.
What did this anonymous person allege was happening?
The anonymous person communicated that Miss Dennis and Mr. Clements were in a relationship, and it was spilling over into the work environment, and there were aspects of the relationship that were illegal and improper.
What aspects did they say were illegal?
Drug use,
Did they say Miss Dennis was doing drugs?
I don't have that clarity.
Okay. What drugs did they say Mr. Clements was doing?
I don't have that clarity.
Did you look into it in your investigation?
As far as we could,
What did you do?
we interviewed the two individuals that the allegation was made on, and we interviewed other individuals that were associated with alleged behaviors within the department.
Who are those other individuals?
Ms. Bryant, the administrative assistant, and Mr. Adams, the warehouse manager.
Did this anonymous person give you those two people's name?
No, sir.
I believe you said you engaged in your normal investigation process. Is that correct?
That is.
How often do you employ private investigators to go to your employees' homes?
If the investigation calls for it, often.
How many times since January 1 of this year?
Once.
Was that Ms. Dennis?
It was.
How many times in 2024?
That's happened twice.
What was the nature of those allegations?
Basically the same aspect of an improper relationship associated with the dynamics of the district.
Can you be more specific?
An allegation that there was
Let me
misuse.
break in just a little bit. I'm sorry. We want to be careful not to identify other employees.
That's what I'm trying to do.
So I know you'll be careful about that, but so Mr. Boddicker knows as well.
I don't
Absolutely.
need any names,
We
but
can-
behavior.
Certainly,
The
we
behavior
require
would
you to,
identify.
Just so you know the ground rules, we're going to keep names, and if there's enough information to identify them, we want to avoid that as well.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. The behavior, specifically how you're asking, would identify the situation.
What was the resolution of those investigations?
Termination.
And you can't give any more details about that?
I cannot.
And were those two separate incidents?
I'm sorry, you said since 2024.
During 2024.
I apologize. Once in 2024.
Can you tell us if that was also consensual in nature?
I would say yes.
What about in 2023?
No, sir.
So we have 2 times total, one being Miss Dennis.
Yes, sir.
What are the names of the 2 investigators?
Miss Baez and Miss Phillips.
And do you know who wrote this report?
I do not.
Is it normal for them to stay at the employee's house until 12:30 at night on a weekend?
If the allegation warrants it, yes.
When was the allegation made?
I don't have a clarity on that.
Well, when was the anonymous call made?
I don't have a clarity on that without, it would be around the time in which administrative leave was communicated.
Who would have that information?
I would.
But you don't know today?
I just don't have it in front of me, no, sir.
How long did you wait to talk to Ms. Dennis after you received the allegation?
I could not put a time frame on it, sir, without looking at the specifics of it.
And you would be the best person to ask, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Are the investigators here?
They are not.
Prior to April of 2025, excuse me, were there ever complaints made about Ms. Dennis's work performance?
Not to my knowledge.
Were there any complaints made about her treatment of Mr. Clements compared to other employees?
Not to my knowledge.
To clarify, so was the only time these complaints were made during your investigation?
Those were the only times they were made to me.
And are you claiming they live together?
I am not claiming anything.
Well, you said something about them cohabitating, so what's your understanding?
Only what the pictures in the investigation divulged.
You stated that certain members of the district talked about Mr. Clements smelling like alcohol. Who are those individuals?
Those are provided in the statement. That is Mr. Adams and Miss Bryant.
And how did Mr. Adams, why did he say he thought Mr. Clements smelled like alcohol?
You would have to look at page 8. Exhibit 5, I believe.
And in the last paragraph, he says, I also noticed Josh smelling like alcohol throughout the day. Did Mr. Adams state when that happened?
He did not.
Did he ever report that to anyone?
I'm unaware.
Do you think it's strange if he smells a coworker smelling like alcohol who drives all day that he didn't report that to anyone?
Says, I believe it is communicated in either this statement or the other that there was an awareness that Miss Bryant had communicated it to him.
That's what he says. So let's jump to Ms. Bryan on page 10. I'm going to read, and you tell me if I get it wrong.
What page are you on, sir?
Page 10 total of the packet. It's the second page of her statement. She says, I was asked if I knew about any drinking on the job. I informed Mary that several people on our team made a statement about Josh smelling like alcohol. I also informed her that inside sources revealed on the date he was going to Boone Park he had a tire blowout. Before he called the tow company, he poured a beer out. Now, who's the inside source?
So that is, I believe, through our investigative process, one of the witnessing individuals is Mr. Adams in that situation.
But Mr. Adams doesn't mention that in his statement, does he?
He does not.
And who are the several people on our team who made statements about Josh smelling like alcohol?
I don't have a clarity on that, sir.
So was that substantiated whatsoever?
More than one individual communicated that it had been communicated to Miss Dennis, and that they had either witnessed it themselves or it had been communicated to them.
And is this individual aware if Ms. Dennis talked to Mr. Clements about it or not?
I don't think they would be aware, no.
Did you look into how these employees felt about Ms. Dennis while you were investigating them?
We stuck to the facts of the investigation.
Have you ever reviewed any texts Mr. Adams sent Ms. Dennis?
No, sir.
Were you aware that on January 20th he texted her at 9:47 p.m. and said, I think you're beautiful, beautiful no matter what anyone says?
No, sir.
And at 10:14 that same night he said, you're beautiful, kind, nice, sweet. Gave a winky face, said love you.
No, sir.
And then a week later he texted her and said, sorry, I fell off the wagon and started day drinking watching the inauguration. I shouldn't talk to you like that.
No, sir.
And that April 7th, he texted her and said, I heard a rumor about you. I heard that you got a divorce. It's not your husband's baby.
No, sir.
And when she told him he shouldn't ask her those type of things, he said, I know the truth.
No, sir.
What about that he said, you can keep running, but you can't hide?
No, sir.
That darkness is going to come to light.
No, sir.
You could have just been honest, but you just couldn't do it, could you?
No, sir.
Do you think it's important that Mr. Adams is talking to Miss Dennis like this?
I don't think it matters what I think.
Well, weren't you part of the investigation process?
I was.
Does it matter to you now that you understand how he is talking to Miss Dennis on a regular basis?
The facts of the case, I believe, were collected within our processes, as is defined by our handbook and policies. And I believe those conversations, if pro-offered by Ms. Dennis, would have been taken into account.
So while we're talking about policies, will you go to Exhibit 20? It's Clements 48. It's code 8.31.
Yes, sir.
At the very bottom, it says a written notice shall contain a statement, and then the first bullet point is of the grounds for the recommendation of termination that are set forth in separately numbered paragraphs. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Was there any discussion of overtime in Ms. Dennis's letter she received recommending termination?
Specifically, it said you have failed to maintain a high standard of ethical conduct.
Is that a no?
I guess it depends on interpretation.
Is the word overtime written?
No, it's not.
Is the overtime policy mentioned whatsoever?
No, sir, it's not.
Are there any specific policies mentioned whatsoever?
No, sir.
You talked about the fact that Mr. Clements and Miss Dennis missed work at the same time. Did this affect the operations of the school?
I don't have a clarity on that.
Why is it important?
Why is what important?
The fact that they both happened to be off on it one day.
Because of the aspects of individuals being in the chain of command to approve one another's time, Ms. Dennis to approve Mr. Clement's time, but by the same token, as I stated on the February 10th, I believe, naming him the direct point of contact. And then him taking off in that same aspect.
And was that just that one day?
I don't have a clarity on the other two that were identified.
At what point do you believe a conflict of interest arose?
Whenever the relationship began and there wasn't a divulging of said relationship.
What date was that?
I don't know that.
Did you look into it in your investigation?
We gave the two individuals the opportunity.
What information do you have that anything was going on in 2023?
Nothing.
Why are we looking at records from 2023?
Because we don't have anything divulging when it started.
Do you ever ask?
We asked for the individuals who have been named to divulge the aspects of their relationship
And when did you ask them that?
in the interview process.
Is that the same meeting where they were placed on administrative leave?
Yes, sir.
Was that decision made already before the meeting started?
There was not a decision made prior to the meeting. The decision was made if they communicated that they were in a relationship, then they would be placed on administrative leave, which is what transpired.
I'm jumping around, so please bear with me. I appreciate it. Talking about compensatory time, who trained her to use that form? When I say her, who trained Ms. Dennis to use the compensatory time form?
It's embedded in our processes and in our policies.
Okay, who trained her on it?
Well, I guess Ms. Dennis did. She identified by her signature of the contract and the handbook that she was familiar and apprised of all of the policies associated with the North Little Rock School District.
So do you know if any third party trained her on how to use it?
I don't have that information.
Do you know if she ever used that form?
I didn't have any information of the compensatory time.
Do you have any information of whether she was using that form prior to engaging in any relationship with Mr. Clements?
I don't know whenever the relationship started, as already communicated.
Well, did her habits change then? Was she using the form then she stopped?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm not aware of any use of the form.
Why'd no one ask her if it's such a violation of district policy?
Because it's embedded in policy and procedure.
Yeah, and so if the district is paying money to people who aren't supposed to receive it, and it's important enough that we're talking about it tonight, why did no one bring it up to Ms. Dennis the years that she was working at the district?
Because we were only recently made aware of the improper relationship.
Was there any inappropriate compensatory time rewarded?
Based on the signed handbook statement of ethics, social media, and conflict of interest, each employee is expected to conduct his or her personal affairs in a manner that avoids any conflict of interest or impropriety, so I would say yes. Every payment has an aspect of impropriety associated with it.
And I think you talked to Mr. Beckett about the fact that Ms. Dennis claimed she never approved Mr. Clement's mileage. Did I understand that right?
Can you repeat the question? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
No, I appreciate that. I want it to be specific. I believe when Mr. Beckett and you were speaking, you said that Ms. Dennis denied that she approved the mileage or POs for Mr. Clements. Is that right?
That does sound correct, yes, sir.
Okay. Let's look at her statement. It's Exhibit 3, I believe. Starts on page 5. And the approving mileage report heading is at the bottom of that page 5. Will you point out to this board where she makes that assertion?
No, sir, I don't believe that was asserted in her statement. That was asserted in the interview the day she was placed on administrative leave.
And I believe you referenced a conflict of interest policy. Was that Exhibit 21? It was. It's page 51.
That is our employee handbook.
Yes, sir. And the ethics, social media, and conflict of interest. Do you see that section?
I do.
What are the examples? I'm not going to make you repeat them. You already read them, and I appreciate it. In the examples, does it mention anything about a romantic relationship being a conflict of interest?
It does not, but it also states, but are not limited to the following.
Certainly. Are you all changing this policy?
This is not a policy, this is our handbook.
Well, didn't she sign it and agree to be bound by it?
She did.
So, and it's part of the reason you're terminating her, is that right?
It is.
And now you're saying this isn't a policy?
This is a handbook,
Is she being terminated for violating the handbook?
partly.
Okay. So, are you changing this section in the handbook?
No.
All right. Will you all, to the board, I gave an exhibit. It's an email from someone named Heidi Cherry. There's multiple people on here. Jacob Smith, is that you on the second line?
It is.
And who's Heidi Cherry?
Ms. Cherry is the head of the CPPC committee.
And this will sit on well, what is CPCC? I don't swim in these waters.
Yes, sir. Classified Personnel Policy Committee.
Okay. And she's sending this email after there's been a recommendation for Ms. Dennis to be terminated. Is that right?
Yes.
I'm going to read this and then I'll ask a question. It says, tonight, Colonel Stanger, am I saying that correctly?
He is.
Okay.
You are.
With the last name like Boddicker, I try to be careful. Tonight, Colonel Stanger told me he had planned to send 2 policies to us by the end of the month. These are new district policies developed by a policy development committee that he initiated this year. One regards professionalism in the workplace. Second involves interpersonal relationships and nepotism. He said these should be straightforward policies that combine into one policy, which are now pieces spread throughout other policies. Was the investigation into Ms. Dennis why the district is considering changing its policies?
I don't have a clarity on that, sir.
Has anyone discussed it?
No, sir. I'm on the CPPC, and it has not been brought to that committee.
Would you agree that there's pieces spread throughout other policies regarding interpersonal relationships?
Yes, sir.
Do you believe that Ms. Dennis committed sexual harassment?
By definition of our policy, yes, sir.
Doesn't your policy specify it has to be unwanted? Unwelcome, excuse me.
Gives a multitude of definitions, but the specific one that I felt applied here I referenced, which was number 3, specifically.
Which
Sub-
page is that on, please?
Excuse me, it's page 45, Exhibit 19. I apologize. I know we were flipping around. I appreciate y'all.
45 and 46.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Smith.
No worries.
All right, will you point again to what you're saying?
Yes, sir. Sexual harassment means conduct that is, and then it goes to the bulleted section. And number 3 is the pertinent one associated with this instance. And specifically 3C.
All right, how was Mr. Clement's work performance affected by their relationship?
I believe the policy reaches beyond that.
Well, you're telling me subsection C is what she violated, so what part of section C was violated?
Such conduct has the purpose or effect of substantially interfering with an individual's work performance or creates intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment.
So what behavior did Ms. Dennis engage in for the purpose of affecting Mr. Clement's work performance?
I believe the policy reaches beyond that.
So it means more than it says.
No, it doesn't say the individual It is just bound to the individual that you are having either a consensual or an unconsensual relationship with.
So you're saying it was affecting Mr. Adams, and I apologize, I can't remember the second person's name.
It was
Ms.
Ms.
Bryant.
Bryant.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay, how is it affecting their work?
As communicated earlier, power imbalance, retaliation, an inability to report or be supported, quid pro quo harassment, favoritism. Can there truly be consent if a power imbalance exists? Things of that nature are all defined within our policies that reference specific laws.
How are these two individuals retaliated against?
How were what two individuals retaliated against?
Mr. Adams and Ms. Bryant.
They were put in a position in which there was not an ability to communicate unbiasedly.
And there were never any complaints made about that prior to this anonymous phone call, is that right?
Not to my knowledge. It seems that there were complaints referenced in the statements, but not to my knowledge.
Who characterized the relationship as an affair?
Miss Dennis and Mr. Clements in the initial interview.
They said, yes, we're having an affair.
They I don't remember exactly how the question was posed, sir, so I would be apprehensive to answer that.
Do you think Ms. Dennis gave Mr. Clements any preferential treatment?
I don't know, but based on the policy, it is, and based on the handbook, it is the giving of preferential treatment or the appearance of.
Do you terminate every employee who violates a policy?
No, sir.
Was Ms. Dennis offered employment for the next school year?
I would imagine so, yes, sir.
Is she good at her job?
I'm not in her supervisory role.
Has she won any awards?
I do believe she might have, yes.
I have no further questions. Thank you all for bearing with me.
All right. Mr. Beckett, anything following up with Ms. Bonica's question?
Two follow-ups. Mr. Smith, turn first to page 1.
I came unstapled here. Okay. Yes, sir.
Mr. Boddicker asked you whether the termination notice specifically mentioned compensatory time. I want to refer you to the sentence that begins, "since your job involves." Do you see that in number 1?
I do. Since your job involves the direct supervision of Mr. Clements, you are responsible for evaluating his job performance, approving his requests for leave and reimbursements, and otherwise supervising his work.
And so would the statement "otherwise supervising his work" encompass as a supervisory responsibility of Ms. Dennis over Mr. Clements approving compensatory leave requests?
It would.
And then I want you to turn to page 36.
Yes, sir.
And what is what is this record?
This is our employment contract for Ms. Dennis for the 24-25 year.
And in the middle of the page, there's a section in this contract called board policies. Is this language in every classified employee contract?
It is.
And the first two sentences speak to personnel policies and requirements, rules, and regulations and board policies. Do you see that?
I do.
And what do you understand that language to mean?
Yes, sir. So that language means that anyone that signs our contract, whatever referenced policies are associated with your particular position, whether it be licensed policies or classified policies, it is like stapling all of those to the back of the contract. You agree to adhere and to abide by all of the appropriate policies associated with your position.
No further questions.
All right, any questions from the board?
Yes.
Start
All right.
with Mr. Taylor. Do you have any questions?
No.
Ms. Walker?
Where are the screenshots of said text that you referred to earlier?
They are on Ms. Dennis's phone if you'd like me to bring it up.
Is that allowed that we can take that to the back?
Be happy
I
to
don't
email the
normally, I appreciate that. I don't normally get into phones during examinations. Potentially opens up a lot more. I think we'll just stick with the presentation that's been made.
Well, we are more than happy to give screenshots of employees talking about how beautiful their supervisor is and how the truth is going to come to light, if you all would like to have those.
Sure, I appreciate that. I didn't mean to comment on whether or not the accuracy of your representations.
Do we have a copy of a drug test or an alcohol test that was given to Mr. Clements or Ms. Mary Lee?
No, ma'am.
All right, is that all? Thanks.
At any time, Ms. Dennis, did this interfere with your job performance?
Well, we're going to stick with Mr. Smith for now. I apologize.
Okay.
Mr. Boddicker and Ms. Dennis will have discussed whatever statement she may make to the board. And so we'll
Oh.
let them make that decision, and then if they do, then we'll inquire of her. So,
Okay.
but for now, let's stick with Mr. Smith. I'm sorry.
That's all.
Ms. Temple? Ms. Person West?
Yes. Going back to page 1, kind of in line with what Ms. Ronkham said, or asked rather. At the bottom of number 2, where you say, where it has in here, you received reports from staff members that they smelled alcohol on or about Mr. Clements during the workday, but you failed to take appropriate action to investigate these allegations. How do we know that necessary? Or is this just based off of what another employee said?
So anytime an allegation is made of that nature, there's the expectation to inform human resources and for us to walk through our processes associated with said allegation. We have an individual officer come over and investigate. We also have individuals from safety and security there to see if we can go through the process of identifying if the individual is in fact inebriated, whether to clear or whether to take it to the next steps associated with a test or things of that nature. As I said, nothing ever came to human resources.
Okay, so we don't know necessarily that anything was found to be true on that component, right?
Well, we just have the statements that there
Mr.
was
Adams.
reports from multiple people that there
So-
was reports of this.
Okay, so then my question to that would be, would Mr. Adams have a due diligence to inform human resources of if he's smelling alcohol or drugs or whatever, bless you, or whatever?
There would be a due diligence to inform your direct supervisor.
Okay, so in the event that it could be a situation, it might be, it's imperative that you still inform someone, whether it's your direct supervisor and or HR, correct?
No, ma'am. So at the point of informing your supervisor, it is then the supervisor's responsibility.
So was it just that?
There would be no knowing on the part of the employee whether there was an informed communication to HR or not. They would
We don't
never.
know if he wrote it in, told somebody, or
Oh.
text, or sent a smoke signal, we don't know.
Only what we have in the statement.
Okay, and when you mentioned, in number one, engaging in the romantic relationship of a subordinate has or potentially could compromise the standards of the district, in the district for employee conduct. To your knowledge, did you ever feel that it compromised work at all? Or did it just not look good?
As I said, I'm not in the evaluation structure of this employee, and so I wouldn't have any ability to comment on on their work. Nothing's ever come to me.
Right. And so you mentioned, well, yeah, it was mentioned several times about the word affair. So were they, to your knowledge, married at the time when you found out?
I have no
So it really
no
wasn't an
knowledge of
affair,
that.
per se?
I have no knowledge of that, whether they were or weren't.
Because when I think of affair, I think of some scandalous stuff, and I don't think that's. So, let me see here, I had some more questions written down. I can't find them. So I think that's all that I may have for you right now.
All right. Mr. Beckett, any questions on the board's questions?
No further questions.
Mr. Bodker?
Nothing.
All right. Ms. Beckett, call your next witness.
Call Tia Bryant. Just scoot your chair over and we'll clear out your chair.
Good evening, Mrs. Bryant.
Good evening.
We're going to have some questions for you, starting with Mr. Beckett. Sounds like you'll do well with this, but just make sure you speak loud enough everybody can hear you. It's kind of a large room.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Beckett, please
Good
begin.
evening. Please state your name, your position in the district, and your tenure, the number of years you've been employed by NLRSD.
Yes, my name is Tia Bryant. I'm the Director Secretary of Child Nutrition, and I've been with the Child Nutrition Department for 21 years now.
So you report and work directly under Ms. Dennis, is that correct?
I do.
And if you could turn in that packet in front of you, all the pages are numbered at the bottom center of the page.
Okay.
And if you could turn to page 9. And do you recognize this document?
I do.
And what is this?
It's a statement that I gave to the Human Resources Director.
Okay, Mr. Smith?
Yes, sir.
All right. First of all, I wanted to ask you when and how, to the best of your memory, you found out that Ms. Dennis and Mr. Clements were involved in a personal romantic relationship.
I want to say about, I want to think like it was sometime around September of October 24. Mrs. Mary Lee's husband, Grant Dennis, contacted me on phone at the office.
And tell us more about that conversation you had with Mr. Dennis.
Mr. Dennis told me that he wanted to ask me a few questions. He said that he would be discreet as to what answers that I gave him pertaining to Mary Lee and Josh. Told me that had I noticed any type of behavior between the two of them in the office, that he had just caught them at a bar late at night and he couldn't find his wife.
Okay. What happened after that?
He just continued to talk about what happened at the bar, that he made it to the bar and he tried to speak to Mary Lee. Mary Lee would not talk to him. She got in her car, in her vehicle, and left. She did not come home, and he was trying to find out whether or not she was in the office or not, or had she come to work.
All right. what I'd like you to do is tell the board whether this personal relationship between Ms. Dennis and Mr. Clements was disruptive or dysfunctional in the child nutrition department.
I feel it was, because years past, I've always had leadership that's been transparent. They come in on a normal work schedule. They give us directives as to what they want done throughout the day. We report back to them anything that they need to know. I wasn't able to always do that with Ms. Dennis or Mr. Clements. They didn't have a set schedule as to when they would come to work. I could look at their calendar and see what their schedules were as far as meetings and that nature. But most of the times I've always received calls from staff members saying that they were looking for Josh, they were looking for Mary Lee, they couldn't get in contact with them, and whether or not I knew where they were. It was almost embarrassing not to be able to give an answer to them as to when they would return or when they could get back with them as far as what their issues were. So I was just being bombarded with everything from 13 different locations, approximately 74 to 80 staff members at one time. And beyond that, people would call for them from different avenues, businesses, and would, leave a message. I'll leave that on a call log or whatever. It wasn't utilized very much, but everything ended up being spreadsheets, writing down of different things, the attendance, comp logs, just any and everything possible. But I also end up having to do different job duties that I wasn't normally doing. I get receiving instruction from your director, and you receiving a directive, and you do the directive. But when it comes down to things of nature such as the coordinator's position, I would ask Mary Lee, why are you doing that? That's, the coordinator's position. And she'd respond in a manner that I would thought that was, appropriate. She'd say, well, I want to give it a chance for me to be able to figure this out, and then give him a chance to do his job before, passing it on. But it was entangling, like time management, things were just going. And I felt like most of the times they would be running by the seats of their pants to try to figure out things. And then when we got the smoker introduced, we were excited about the smoker because we could do something different for our students. We could give our students, a different type of menu. We could, but that ended up being what was supposed to be a coordinator's position. We all in the office were having to get up from our desk to season meat, to smoke the meat, and then later on have to take the meat off, and then Mr. Adams would have to transport it to the location. So most of the time with that, it was just run about the seat of your pants, I need you today type of situation. And that just, with everything that I'm involved with, payroll, finance, HR, orientations, and everything else for my department, I feel like it was just overwhelming.
Okay, now, as the director of child nutrition, the buck stops with Ms. Dennis, is that correct?
That's correct.
I mean, Ms. Dennis, in your experience in the district, you've worked for over 20 years. The director is responsible for approving leave requests, approving compensatory time, approving mileage reimbursements and other reimbursements, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And Ms. Dennis says the director might delegate some of the tasks involved with that, but the approvals are her responsibility.
Correct.
All right. I also wanted to ask you if you'd turn in that packet there to page 10. At the top of the page, you include in your statement information about whether you knew about any drinking on the job by Josh.
Yes, sir.
Tell the board everything you knew about Josh Clements drinking on the job and what you did with that information.
Well, going out to schools is not normally something that was a part of my duties or positions. It's actually stated that I do not have to drive outside of the office, but I've been having to do so to go to different locations, handle different situations such as technology, emails, passwords, and things of that nature. I also go out there to make sure the point of service system is working and different things like that. But during some of my visits at the school, people would tell me that Josh drinking? Like, Josh is drinking, he's drunk. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't per se say anything back to them, and I would make you think that. They say, because we can smell it. I have, and this has come from managers, CN assistants, and stuff like that. So instead of me blowing it out of proportion, I took it to Mary Lee and told Mary Lee about it.
What part of the year, how long ago did this happen when you got these reports and told Miss Dennis?
This would be right around, well, I can't really pinpoint the exact date in time.
Yeah.
But I am aware of the incident with him going out to Boone Park and popping his tires. Mr. Adams and I have worked closely in relationship together in the district for quite some time. And he came back and he was just like, out of sorts a little bit about when I made it to Josh, he, was pouring beer out or whatever.
That's Mr. Adams. Saying
Bo Adams.
Yeah, saying that he saw Mr. Clemens pour beer out.
Correct,
on the ground.
correct. And that he had several cans in the back of his truck, beer cans.
And this was while Mr. Clemens was working for the district.
Correct.
Okay. And driving a company vehicle?
He was driving his personal
His
vehicle at this
personal
time.
vehicle
Yes,
at that
sir.
time, but
Mhm.
on school business.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then, so in addition to Bo Adams telling you that Clemens was drinking on the job,
Yes,
he
sir.
told you that, right?
Yes, sir. He didn't say he saw him drinking. He said he saw him pouring out beer.
Right. Now, did Bo Adams tell you that he smelled alcohol on Josh?
Yes.
Okay. Who were the other people that told you, or you had heard that they smelled alcohol on Josh?
These were district managers, and I wasn't one to put their names in
Okay.
whatever
But
because.
these are managers of cafeterias.
Yes, sir.
Throughout the district.
Yes, sir.
I mean, can you tell us several people, how many do you think told you?
After
they-
four was
Pardon?
after me hearing it at least 4 times.
Okay, and so after you'd heard it at least 4 times, you went to Miss Dennis.
I did.
Okay, tell us about that conversation you had with Miss Dennis about Clemens smelling like alcohol.
Well, she was in her office, and I just walked into her office and asked, could we talk? I always usually call her MLD or Mary Lee or, whatever, and I just said, MLD, can we talk? And she said, yeah, sure. She's always open to talk. And so when I went into her office, I had, disclosed that, hey, Josh is pouring beer out. I believe it was the very same day, because that was the final 4th time that I had heard it. And I told her that Bo told me that Josh was pouring beer out when he popped his tires, and that, he believed that he'd been drinking.
All right, and what did Dennis tell you after you told her that, somebody had seen Clemens pouring beer out and that other people had smelled alcohol on his breath?
She didn't say anything immediately to me. I just figured from her hearing it that she would take care of the situation.
And did you ever hear that Miss Dennis took care of the situation?
I did not.
Do you know whether Miss Dennis ever investigated the allegations? that were
No,
made?
sir.
I mean, in your experience with the district, would drinking on the job or smelling like alcohol on the job be something that should be investigated by a supervisor?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'll pass the witness. These other folks may have questions. The board may have questions, and Mr. Boddicker may have questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll start with Mr. Boddicker.
Ma'am, when is the last time you received a complaint from one of these managers?
I receive a complaint daily from managers.
About Josh being drunk on the job?
No, not about Josh being drunk on the job, but specifically about him being drunk on
Yes,
the
ma'am.
job. This would have been, like I said, it was about the 4th time that I had heard anything about him drinking was when I reported to Mary Lee.
And how many times was that reported afterwards?
Several times afterwards.
When?
I can't give you a specific date or time.
When did you talk to Ms. Dennis about it?
I can't give you a specific date or time as to exactly what date and time it was.
Does
But I
this-
do know he was headed to Boone Park Elementary.
Would it sound right if I told you that was in August of 2024?
Not quite sure. I don't want to give a date if I'm not quite sure about the exact date.
Does it sound like the right time period?
Before and after, yes.
And I think you said Mr. Grant Dennis called you around October of 2024?
I want to think it was like September or October, somewhere around there.
Did he mention to you that he was separated from Miss Dennis at the time?
He did not. He mentioned that he wanted to save his marriage, is what he mentioned to me.
That's what he said.
Yes.
Did she say she wanted to save the marriage?
I wasn't involving myself in anyone's personal relationships or business.
So is it possible these things you heard about Mr. Clements with alcohol all were occurring prior to him entering a relationship with Miss Dennis?
Prior to,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not aware that they had it. I mean, all of this is a big shock to me. So the relationship stuff is, I don't.
So that's super important. I appreciate that because Mr. Smith's talking about how uncomfortable you are in your job because of their romantic relationship. So when did you become shocked to hear about this?
I became shocked to hear about the allegations when Mr. Dennis contacted the office.
So up until that point, did you have any inclination whatsoever if they could be in a relationship?
I did not.
Did you think Mr. Clements was getting preferential treatment before Mr. Dennis called?
I did.
Okay. Will you look at your statement? It's Exhibit 6, page 9. I think you're probably on the second page. I had one more question before that. When did Miss Dennis start to not have a set schedule that you talked about?
Ms. Dennis has not ever had a set schedule.
So that didn't change in October of 24?
No, and that was the problem.
Okay. And the dates that Josh missed from work, it's in bold toward the bottom of your statement. I'm going to reach across Mr. Beckett and show you right there. When did Josh start having issues logging his attendance?
Josh has always had issues with logging his attendance.
Did he start working there before Miss Dennis?
Not that I'm aware, no.
Okay, so he was hired after her.
Correct.
Okay. And so you don't know if those issues persisted prior to any relationship?
I know that Josh has always had an issue with logging his attendance. I key in his attendance. I have to ask several times for him to give me the specific time frame for which his attendance needs to be entered and the code for which he would like to use for his attendance. I highlight our attendance log. I make sure that Mary Lee can see, like, I need this, question mark, highlight. And it really gets to me with that because it's throwing my job off, my duties and position off. I'm responsible for keying in attendance and leave on a daily basis. If I don't get Mr. Clem's attendance for 3, 4, 5 days, then I have to remember to go back and key in Mr. Clemens' attendance.
I think we've all had jobs where it gets annoying to have to cover for other employees. Is that how you felt?
Yes.
I feel like that every day.
Yes.
So I certainly would understand it. With that being said, was the program doing pretty well?
Yes, we have implemented a lot of things for the number one priority in the school district, which are our students. And so with them being able to do the smoker and with them being able to do things for our students, I've been here through 3 directors now. And so I get to see the smiles on children's faces and what we can do for them. And I get to see the programs that we can be a part of. But we can't dismantle things that we start for students and then not be able to do that for our number one priority. If we're going to smoke the meat, there needs to be a set schedule. Let us know. There's no transparency as far as when we're smoking the meat, how much meat is there to be smoked, the thawing out process. All of these things are very important. But when you take a person who, like me, and I'm possibly doing payroll, and you tell me that I need to get out and I need to do 70 pounds of pork butt and not only take the skin off of it, but season it and get it on a grill, that's unfair.
When did she start asking you to do that?
That's been from the beginning. We were all supposed to do that as a team, but we did not have all of our team players. No, all of our team players weren't there.
So it's possible Miss Dennis was having you do this prior to being in a relationship with Mr. Clements?
Yes.
When
It
was
got
he-
worse after they were not showing up for work.
Field trip request forms. When did she start having you fill those out?
Just recently.
When?
I don't fill them out. She was having me to upload them to a drive.
Is that, I apologize, ma'am. You go ahead.
Yeah, everything's switched up. So with Mary Lee, we learned a Google Drive. Her thing is get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I'm good with change. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. So now, Mr. Clemens is responsible for field trip request forms, the number of field trips, students that are going on the field trip. He's responsible for making sure that those schools have everything that they need in order to be prepared for those field trips. Now, it's get the field trip form and upload those field trip forms to the drive. If I'm not responsible for field trips or field trip is not a part of my duties and positions, then why am I have to take time out of my day, out of my scheduled duties to perform tasks that are meant for someone else?
Because that makes your job harder, right?
It does. It makes the day longer, and it pushes my duties off to another day when I could have already taken care of them.
And are you saying that's because of her relationship with Mr. Clemens that you're having to do that?
I'm saying it's because their lack of being in the office, their attendance, and transparency with what they were doing or where they were.
And that's day one, right?
No, not day one. In the beginning, of course, everything's always great in the beginning. Everything works in the beginning. But then when you start lacking off and your duties fall upon someone else, then it gets worse. Now the ball's rolling. Certain people in our department are specific in what they do.
The DHS report, when was that you mentioned on, it's page 10 total. It's going to be the second page of your statement. When did this issue occur?
This DHS report just happened. It was one of our most recent DHS reports. It was a very important report. We always have these April 1 numbers, April 15th. We have to make sure everything's done for our students. The district is well aware of this. This is how we try to get our 70% to get extra money and stuff.
So I promise I don't want to cut you off. I just recognize we're here late, so I'm just going to try to streamline a little bit, okay? Has Josh always been slow at filling out these type of reports?
Yes.
Okay. Since the day he was hired?
Yes.
On-site reports, is it the same?
Yes. He neglects his duties.
Energy, so I'll just skip. We don't have to go through each of these. Would you say he's been neglecting his duties since the day he was hired?
Yes.
And is it fair to say you don't know when the relationship began between these two?
I do not.
When was he hired?
I do not know that either. I was not there during his hiring.
When did he start to work with you? That might be a better question.
In the beginning of, I want to say, about mid-2003, 2004, I believe.
And are you frustrated that you've not received additional pay for this extra work?
No. I'm used to that. That's happened to me before.
You say in your statement on staff bonus, this has been mentioned by Mary Lee on more than one occasion, in office and outside with CM managers. I have asked about my proper duties and tasks and to be compensated accordingly.
Yes.
Why do you feel the need to put this in here?
I feel the need to put that in there so that I can speak up for the CN team. Managers are coming to me asking, are we getting a bonus? Mary Lee is saying we're going to get a bonus. I have to report to them and says, well, as long as the program is running properly, she's told you that she can get you staff bonuses if the program runs appropriately and there's enough funding for us to get a bonus. So they know that there's procedures in order for them to follow before that can happen. If we have a lot of food waste, that's not going to happen.
And was she successful in getting a large number of employees raises or bonuses?
She did.
Okay. No further questions.
All right, Mr. Beckett,
Prior
any thought-
to this situation.
Any follow-up, Ms. Beckett? All right, any questions from the board for Ms. Bryant?
Ms. West?
When you said prior to this situation, there at the end, are you saying prior to September 2024?
Yes, ma'am.
When do
I'm saying
bonuses-
this is before they did something with the financials, and Mary Lee was able to, I believe, give all the managers like a 4% raise throughout our staff or something like that. But this is most recent is what I'm speaking about. This is people coming to me saying, are we going to get the bonus? Are we going to get a bonus? Several managers are saying, Mary Lee said we're going to get one. And I'm saying, well, your bonus is contingent upon your performance.
So, if you've gotten one in the past, as far if employees of child nutrition has gotten one in the past, would there not be a reason to trust you wouldn't get one this time? Or when do bonuses go out, I guess,
I'm not quite sure the exact date of when it was a district-wide thing when the teachers received, I believe the 50,000 was gonna be
so
there
that
for,
was probably a one-time deal.
correct.
And it might have been, I think if, going back to some board meetings, it may have been contingent based upon if we had funds available.
Yes, ma'am.
So, that's just kind of up in the air.
Yes,
It's
ma'am.
just contingent based on several type situations and scenarios. And that's what I have on that, I do believe.
All right, thank you.
Who do I
Miss-
ask the questions
Miss-
to?
You go ahead,
Miss-
Ms. Williams, go ahead. I don't have anything right now. so
Okay,
go
Ms.
ahead.
Williams.
Oh, I would just ask, would you describe your job description to me, because it seems like you're just so burdened down, and you got so much work to do.
Yes, ma'am.
And let's give me, and I know when we got to Smoker, Mr. Logan was here, and he was helping with all of that. Now, you need to tell me, you done depressed me talking about, you have to stop doing what you're doing to go do that. So would you tell me what you really do, please, in the period of a day? What's your job, darling?
I'm a director secretary, but I've been asking for an administrative assistant position for quite some time. I do hiring paperwork, orientation,
What kind of paperwork?
the hiring process for the school district on the Talent Ed portal. Each staff member, if they hire them, my
We don't hire
day-to-day,
such members every day.
ma'am,
We don't have them every day.
no, ma'am. So on a daily basis, when I come in to work, I take in maintenance logs, technology tickets and work orders. I do the pony system, send out the mail out to our staff so that they can have stuff. I receive back in the deposits and things of that nature. I balance out the income financial statements with Jana Meeks, who does our financials and our payroll deposits. I'm responsible for pretty much everything. For past years, I've been doing email accounts and setting up passwords for our department. I was a part of the Novatime system implementation, where you key in the staff members' fingerprints and get them all logged in.
Okay, hold it right there. Only thing that I was asking you, if this a daily thing every day, because the way you were talking is to just, so much is going on, and you can't do this, and you don't know where Miss Daniels is. I know where she is on certain days, because
Yes.
do you know when she be going and fixing meals for the board?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, she does let you know that.
Yes, ma'am. The superintendent luncheons? Yes, ma'am. I'm aware of
Oh,
those.
thank you. Because seemingly he was saying she didn't let you know nothing.
No, I'm saying
That's all
their
right.
time in the office isn't.
That's all right.
Yes, ma'am.
Now I got the point. Thank you.
Can I ask one more question real quick? What is your title again?
I'm the director secretary.
Did you has that always been your title since you've been with the district?
No, ma'am. I started from the bottom. I was a 4-year sub in 2004. I worked my way up to become a manager. 2 years later, I managed Ridge Road Middle School, that then turned into a charter school for 8.5 years. I was asked to come to the Child Nutrition Office in 2010, 2011. I worked from the Child Nutrition Office as that same position since then.
Did you have a position change here within the last 2 years to a year?
No, ma'am.
For clarification, what I heard you saying is that you were taking on other people's responsibilities in addition to yours.
Yes, ma'am.
So, in your day-to-day, what things got added to you that you would reasonably expect another position to carry out?
Day-to-day would be, again, the field trip forms would come in, not on an everyday basis, but when they would come in, that would throw me off. Mr. Clements would have to do signage. He'd give me the signage and ask me to laminate those signage. So it was just me taking out of my day-to-day to perform a task for Mr. Clements or for whomever was in the office. So basically, my position, if they're not in the office, then I'm challenged with doing their positions, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Ms. McLean?
No questions.
And it's not just Mr. Clements and Ms. Dennis either. It's all 7 of our staff.
Okay, so just for clarity's sake, what you're stating and what I'm hearing is that you went to your supervisor, Miss Mary Lee, and you made a statement regarding an employee, and you feel that she did not follow up on said accusation or statement.
I don't feel that she didn't follow up because once I give it to Ms. Dennis, I don't think that I should be privy to anything that happens between her or another employee.
So do you feel that you did your job
By reporting it,
going
yes,
and
ma'am.
reporting? And then you also stated, so coming back to the smoker, we've never had a set schedule for the smoking of the meat then, is that what I was understanding?
Correct. Like now I'm facing things that we aren't, there's not transparency. So if we're gonna smoke meat, I think that it just should have been a clear, like schedule as to what dates and times the meat should be smoked so that they can be prepared properly and distributed for the students.
Anything else?
That's all.
Mr. Taylor?
All right, thank you.
Nothing
Mr.
further.
Beckett, follow up.
No further questions.
Mr. Boddicker?
I have one. Why did you not make any complaints stating one if the department was doing so poorly?
It wasn't doing poorly because I was holding it up.
No further questions.
All right.
What was the question
Thank-
again?
I asked why was the witness not making complaints if the operation was going so poorly, and she said it wasn't because of her hard work. If I summarize that.
Well,
right.
our entire team, so
Yep.
everything, I'm not just saying I'm the person that handles everything, but whenever you have staff members that don't do their part, it falls on the rest of the team, and that gets to be hard, yes.
All right, thank you, Ms. Bryant.
I have one more question, please. You've said you've been with the district for 21 years, so you've had several directors that you've worked for, and I heard you say that you felt like she did some really good things, that you were supportive of that.
Yes.
But taking your experience with other directors and this director, I mean, how would you evaluate the leadership that you were receiving?
I would evaluate it as not being transparent.
All right, thank you,
thank
Mrs.
you.
Bryant. Mr. Beckett?
That concludes the administration's presentation, Mr. Richardson.
Mr. Boddicker, turns to you to call your first witness.
Is Mr. Adams here?
Yes.
Let's start with Mr. Adams.
Okay. Mr. Adams, there's a chair at the end of the table here, and Mr. Smith, I think if you could share that microphone with him. And you're welcome to adjust that up or down if you need to. As I said to Ms. Bryan, let's speak loudly so everybody can hear you, okay?
Okay.
All right, Mr. Boddicker, go forward.
Mr. Adams, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
When did this car wreck happen with Mr. Clements?
I can't recall the date.
Describe watching him pour out a beer.
I was coming down Pike, and I believe it was 19th Street that he was pulled over on, and I pulled in behind him to see what was going on, and he was getting out of his driver's seat, driver's side, and he was pouring out a beer, and then he opened the back of his trunk and threw the beer can in the back of his trunk.
And what'd you say to him?
I asked him what happened. He said that somebody ran him off the road.
When did you follow up with Miss Dennis?
I didn't see her that day.
When did you follow up with her?
I didn't.
You never talked to Miss Dennis about it?
No, I didn't.
Do you remember sending a text message at 9:47 on January 20th that
I don't.
says, excuse me, I think you're beautiful no matter what anyone says?
Yeah, yeah.
Did you say at 10:04 that same day after sending some other text, I'm sorry, I should have shut up and drift away?
Probably so, yeah.
And she said, I'm going to sleep.
Yeah.
A few minutes later, you say, "You're beautiful, kind, nice, sweet, etc. Have a good night. Winky face, love you."
Yeah, but I didn't mean it in that way.
And then did you text her a week later and said, "I just wanted to apologize for the other night. I fell off the wagon and started day drinking and watching the inauguration. I'm pretty much a screw up, but that's nothing new. If I said anything to offend you, I apologize. I like you as a boss and a friend."
Yes.
Did you have romantic feelings for Miss Dennis?
No, I didn't.
Did you text other coworkers or supervisors that they were beautiful?
Not that I recall.
Did you text her on April 7th and say, "Hey, what's up? I got another rumor for you"?
Yes.
And then you say, "Well, it's not a rumor. I'm not saying anything. It's not my business, but you can be straightforward with me about it."
Yes.
And she says, "Spit it out." Is that right?
Yes.
And you said, "You and your husband is divorced. It's not his baby. I haven't told anyone about it yet. That's on you."
Right.
And then she said, "I saw you liked his post, so I figured you would say something." Did Grant Dennis post on Facebook about the fact that Miss Dennis was pregnant?
He said that it wasn't his baby, and he wasn't married anymore. And
So-
I believe that was April 5th.
And then did you text her at 7:10 and say, "I went back and I liked it. So is Josh the baby daddy? Don't lie."
Yes, I did say that.
And then she responded, "Bo, I don't want to be unprofessional and or rude to you because we still have to work together, but I can't believe you would ask me that. I think it's best we don't continue this conversation."
Yes.
And you said, "I already know that's why you mad.
Yes.
And it's all good. That's your business. I know the truth. I'm done with it."
Right.
And then she said, "I'm not mad. Just floored that you would even text me about my marriage, first of all, but second of all, get in my personal business and insinuate something you have no idea about. Like, I would never cross that line with someone I work with, much less report to."
Yes.
And you say you can keep running, but you can't hide.
Right.
The darkness is going to come to light. Is that a yes?
Yes.
"I just wanted you to be honest with me, but you couldn't do that. You said we shouldn't even talk outside of work." Is that right?
Yes.
"Look, your husband called us 6 months ago saying that you was effing Josh, so don't tell me about putting business out there."
Right.
You texted her all that?
I did.
Were you angry at her?
It's a situation, I guess.
You didn't have romantic feelings toward her. Why'd you care?
No, I never had feelings towards her.
Why are you cussing her out in the middle of the night?
I didn't cuss her out.
Why are you texting her about it if you don't care?
I seen it on Facebook because I'm friends with Mr. Dennis.
Why'd you say the light's going to come out from the darkness?
The affair is what I meant by that.
You said they would, I couldn't hear that.
The affair that they're having, that's what I meant by the darkness,
Why do you call it an affair?
because that's what it is.
Explain it to me.
They were both married at the time, I believe, when they were sleeping with each other.
When they first have sex?
I have no idea.
So what's the basis of you saying that?
I just know that her husband accused them about 6 to 8 months ago.
Her husband that called the office repeatedly and said he was trying to save his marriage?
I don't know anything about that. Oh, well, yes, I do. Yeah, when he talked to Tia, yes.
Who are the other employees you heard say that Josh smelled like alcohol?
So, we're not gonna.
I'm not gonna
give
put
names,
anybody's-
But
yeah.
you need to give enough detail to answer the question.
Just to clarify, I can't know who these witnesses are that is going to cause my client to potentially lose the job.
Yeah.
Okay. What are those details?
They're managers. I mean, I'm not putting anybody's name out there, but there's been a lot of managers say that they've smelled alcohol and thought Josh was drunk.
Who'd you report that to in HR?
I didn't.
Did you believe it?
I mean, I've smelled alcohol on Josh before.
Why didn't you report it to HR?
I was scared, I guess,
About what?
of what they might do, and
Who is they?
Mary Lee and Josh, you know.
What time?
If nothing was done about it, I was scared what they might try to do to me, you know, retaliation.
You're so scared of her that you're texting her about how beautiful she is? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Why'd you go ask Josh about it?
Ask Josh about what?
Whether or not Miss Dennis was pregnant with his child?
Why'd I ask him?
Yes.
I was curious. It was rumors that were going around.
Have you ever watched Mr. Clements consume alcohol while working?
No.
No further questions.
Ms. Beckett, any follow-up?
Yeah, just a few questions. So, Mr. Adams, you definitely noticed Clement smelling like alcohol throughout the day.
Yes.
Can you give us a rough estimate on how many different times you smelled alcohol on Clements during the workday?
When we smoke meats, I would definitely smell alcohol on him. It's
How
like-
many times would that be?
we'd smoke meats about once a month.
So once a month during this school year,
Yeah.
you smelled alcohol,
When he was there, I mean, here recently, he hasn't even been there.
right?
The whole child nutrition, office has been doing his work. So
So at least 4 to 5 times you smelled alcohol
Yes,
on
yes.
Clements' breath
yes,
during the workday.
yes.
All right. How many other employees did you hear them say that they smelled alcohol on Clements' breath?
At least 4 to 5.
Okay. And we're talking about during this school year?
Last school year, I believe.
Last school year?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you say in your statement that you believe Tia spoke to Dennis about people smelling alcohol on Clement's breath during the workday.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes.
Why did you believe that?
Why did I believe?
Why did you believe that Bryant spoke to Mary Lee about it?
Oh, because I asked her. I mean, I
You
told.
asked who?
I asked Tia.
You asked Tia if she talked to Mary Lee about Josh smelling like alcohol?
Yes.
And did Tia tell you what Dennis said to her?
Tia said that she kind of just blew it off like, it was no big deal. It was just a beer. That's what I believe. I remembered that I heard. So,
That it's not a big deal for an employee of a school district to be smelling like alcohol during the workday?
yes.
And so you didn't say anything to Dennis about it or somebody like in HR about it because you were worried that if you did that, Dennis might retaliate against you?
Right. Because, I mean, they worked together previously, before they worked here together. So, I mean, they've got a tight friendship,
So did this, was it your belief that this relationship, this personal relationship between Dennis and Clemens, was that disruptive to the child nutrition department?
Yes.
Tell the board why you say that.
Yeah. I mean, there's days when they don't come in, and you don't know where they're at. They put their work off on other people, and it's just the last 6 months hasn't been the same, at the office.
All right. Thank you, sir. No further questions.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Potiker, any follow-up there?
Yes, just one follow-up. If it's been going on for 6 months, why did you not report it to anyone?
I didn't know who to report to.
Did you sign the handbook?
Yes.
Okay, no further questions.
All right, questions from the board?
Mr. Taylor? Ms. Wonka?
You didn't identify yourself, I'm sorry, outside of being
Oh.
Bo. I know that.
My name is Bo Adams, Child Nutrition Department.
So who do you, what do you do in child nutrition?
I manage the warehouse. I do deliveries throughout the week. I take USDA commodities to the schools.
Okay.
And it's
So your direct supervisor is,
Mary Lee.
okay.
Ms. Questions. Ms. Williams? No. Ms. Temple?
I guess the only thing that came to my mind when you were reading the text, I'm just wondering, what's the rest of the text? Because I can't imagine anybody just out of the blue. You just,
Well,
I mean, was there not some kind of conversation
I read you the text.
in all responses?
Yes.
Okay.
I might have skipped a couple LOLs.
Mr. Potiker, I think she's asking the witness.
Oh, I apologize.
So
I thought she was looking at me.
let's
Well,
let
I
Mr.
mean, I'm saying.
I
is
understand.
that-
Let's let Mr. Adams respond first, and then.
Well, with him saying that I called her beautiful, sweet, nice, that's a whole different conversation that we was having. He added that into, that last part, you know, about, the darkness and, what else?
Ma'am,
Speaking.
Mr. Boddicker, I believe I'm in charge of this
I
hearing.
mean-
I
Thank you.
apologize, sir.
As far as I
And
can
we'll-
recall.
Excuse me, Mr.
that's-
Adams. Excuse me. Pardon me. We'll have no comments from the gallery. All right, Mr. Adams, please finish your answer.
You know, the part where I told her that she was kind, beautiful, smart, and all that, that was a whole different conversation from what I remember,
Okay.
you know.
Well, I guess that's what, I feel like there was more to the conversation, that's all. I just,
Yeah,
it
I
doesn't,
mean,
it
I
doesn't
could-
feel complete to me.
I mean, I could go back and look at my phone and make sure, but
Okay.
Ms. West,
In the text messages that was read, it said that you were drinking and
Yes.
you fell off the wagon or something.
yes, ma'am.
So if you were drinking and you were triggered by the events of that particular day, then that's kind of when you started going into, I want to say almost like a professional threat towards her, saying, you know, about you going into the darkness, and
I was just saying what she had done. You
what
know,
did she do?
when she had an affair.
Okay, but you don't know if she was married during that time?
I thought she was at the time.
You thought she was, or
Yeah.
you knew?
I thought she was still married at the time.
Okay. And if you were trying to get her to confess by text, what you wanted her to prove that the baby was somebody other than her ex-husband?
I just asked if it was Josh's.
That's what I just said.
Yeah.
I asked you that.
Okay.
So did you want, what, a DNA test or something?
No, not at all. I just wanted to know what was going on because they've been hiding, you know, their relationship.
But what business is it of yours?
Well, I mean, I work with them. Well, I guess it's.
So let me ask you this, on Facebook, on the T's and C's, which are the terms and conditions, it says specifically that this is for entertainment purposes only. That's what Mark Zuckerberg's wrote for his particular platform. So my question to you is, do you believe everything on Facebook?
No, I sure don't.
That's all.
All right. Mr. Beckett, any follow-up?
When were the text messages sent that were being read there?
I'd have to look. I'd have to look at my phone.
Nothing further.
Okay.
I believe it was probably around, after April 5th, probably, somewhere.
After April 5th of this year?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Boddicker, follow-up.
Wait, I have one more question. So you mentioned that within 6 months it's been falling all apart, but they hadn't been here, right?
Who hasn't been here?
Your coordinator and director, they hadn't been
Well, yeah, I don't
in the
see-
building. They've been on leave, so within how long have they been on leave? What's the date?
Been on leave 5 weeks.
Since April 25th.
Since April 25th. Okay.
All right.
No further questions.
Mr. Boddicker, to you
No,
now.
no further questions, and I apologize for earlier, sir.
That's all right. Thank you. Any further witnesses for you, Mr. Boddicker?
I will call Ms. Dennis.
All right.
Ask her just a few questions to clarify.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Dennis, are you comfortable giving your text messages with Mr. Adams to the board
Yes,
in full,
yes,
with full context?
yes.
When did Mr. Adams report that he saw Mr. Clements pour out a beer?
Mr. Adams did not report to me.
Tell me what you did hear about that.
Ms. Dennis, if you could speak up
Oh,
just a
yeah,
little
sure.
bit, I'm having a little trouble hearing.
Mr. Adams didn't report that to me. That was from Miss Bryant days later,
How many days later?
either 1 or 2. It was not the day of.
And how did you proceed?
I had a conversation with Mr. Clements about the information that was passed on to me.
Give us details about that.
I brought him into my office and I asked him about the situation with the tire and asked him if he was drinking that day at all and why someone would have mentioned that he was pouring out liquor or beer at all. And he said he denied it, and then he also made the comment, why would if I did, why would I even wait until someone is there to do that in front of them? And then I didn't smell anything on him at that point, and that was the end of it. Since it was not the day of the incident, I did not witness any alcohol on him that day, and that was his statement that I was clarifying.
Did you ever smell alcohol on him at work?
No.
Did these managers ever report it to you?
No.
Were there any other complaints made about him drinking?
No, just from Miss Bryant.
Just the one time?
Yes.
When did that occur?
The incident about Boone Park, when he was on the way there with the tire situation.
What was the date? As best as you can remember.
End of August, early September. It was at the beginning of the year, not long after the school year had started.
Were you all in any sort of relationship at that time?
No.
Did you ever have an affair with Mr. Clements?
No.
Were you separated from your husband?
Yes.
Who started calling it an affair?
My ex-husband, Grant Dennis.
Were you ever interviewed prior to April 25th?
No.
Apologize, I jumped one question. The investigation you did with Mr. Clements, is that how you would have handled any investigation with that allegation?
Yes, anytime something is brought to my attention, I have a conversation with that employee. If it's something that I, on my own, smell or observe, I've always contacted HR and followed the proper procedures of having safety and security come and investigate that.
Did you ever approve Mr. Clements' leave inappropriately?
No.
Did you ever approve inappropriate mileage reports?
No.
Has anyone ever said that he was receiving too much leave or too much money via mileage reports?
No.
Did you ever evaluate him once you were in a relationship?
No.
Will you tell the board a little bit about what you've done for the district?
I feel like it's repetitive. I come before them a lot and talk about things. I meet with them monthly at the luncheons, but I love this job. I came to this school district to try to improve the operations and just put the kids first and do things outside of the box a little bit. I've always wanted to do what's best for the students, and I've seen with my own eyes that these meals are a lot of times their only meals that they eat. And you can tell, we look at production records and know what days food is consumed the most on, what days food's consumed on the least on, and then you will go into the cafeterias and see kids clear their plates on foods that are even the least liked food. And so I've always tried to improve as much as possible and push our employees too. Miss Brown wasn't wrong when I said uncomfortable with being uncomfortable, because I always strive to do above and beyond. And I think that's why we have had news stations hear about our success here and come to do news stories on our breakfast participation. We've won awards on highest breakfast participation from one year to the other through the Arkansas Hunger Relief Alliance. Participation, student meal consumption and participation has gone up. That's how I was able to pass raises outside of the standard raises for my employees. I've always tried to take time and put it back on the employees. They're the ones that make this department run, which is why I've always tried to make them feel valued, what they do feel valued, even if in their own schools they feel like an outsider. That's my job, to make them feel valued in what we do every single day. No, it's not always great because I'm asking them to scratch prepare pizza, but I do that because I know it's so much more healthy and nutritious than a frozen pizza.
Has Ms.
and-
Bryant ever complained about having to do these job duties?
Yes.
And what did you tell her when she complained?
That I would look into switching some things around, looking at her day-to-day operations. A lot of the things that get complained about aren't day-to-day things that she consistently has to do. The field trip request forms, I mean, most of the time that's elementary. Every once in a while it's middle school where they want meals to take with them. That's rare throughout the school year. It's like one here and there that she may have to upload into the drive. And that's so that no matter where any of us are, we can log on to that drive and see, okay, 90 kids are out today at Boone Park. Let's make sure that we adjust our meals that we're preparing on site at Boone Park for that day, for example. Or just so that if anyone calls from Boone Park, anyone in the office can answer the phone and say, okay, we have 90 kids out at Boone Park for 5th grade today. Just those random duties aren't day-to-day additional duties that are added to her plate as
And
sporadic.
What is your response to her claiming she has had to work significantly harder ever since you became pregnant?
I feel like that's not new. That's just been Miss Bryant from the day that I entered this district. I think that's a long-standing feeling of Miss Bryant. Yes, she's a tenured employee, but those years I feel like have led to that mindset.
Do you have anything else you want to say?
Is this my turn to make my statement?
Or make it?
I really just, first off, just want to apologize that we're even here. I hate that I'm taking up whatever time it is, however many hours that we're having to take up of your evening this evening. I've been asked many times if my decision making was poor. I think did my decisions negatively affect the school district? I don't think at this time that anything I've done has negatively impacted the district. Hindsight, I would have made different decisions so that we aren't here this evening. This past month has just really been hard. To number one, to think that I let my team down that I've worked so hard the past 4 years to build up. And then also potentially losing my job, not just losing my job, but losing my job in a time period that I am going to be bringing a child into this world in a few months, something that I never thought would happen. I mean, I know I've spoken to several of you personally about this journey that I didn't even think would be here, but it's here now. And then to think that I potentially may be losing a job that I love, that I've poured a lot into the past 4 years. So this past month has just been a lot, and I hate that we're here.
All right.
I think we have anything else?
Mr. Beckett.
Ms. Dennis, can you turn to page 51? It's like one of the last pages. Now, clearly, you would have to agree as a manager of your department that having a relationship with a direct report is an actual or potential conflict of interest, correct? That shouldn't take long for you to think of an answer. It's either yes or no.
I mean, it could lead to that, yes.
Correct. Because
Yes.
you've been a manager for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
How
Yes,
long?
sir.
Yes. How long have you been a manager?
I've been with the district for 4 years.
And before that, were you involved in a managing capacity?
Yes.
For how long?
2 years.
Okay, so you've been a manager or administrator for multiple years, correct? in this policy here on page 51, you're required to immediately disclose to your supervisor, who's Colonel Stanger, correct?
As of now,
Right.
yes.
Any potential or actual conflict of interest, correct?
Yes,
That's what it says.
that's what it says.
You didn't do that.
I didn't.
So you're really here to ask the board for mercy because you know what you did was wrong, correct?
Yes,
I mean, you hold a position of trust in this district, correct?
I do.
I mean, how many employees ultimately, how big is your department? How many employees?
It ranges. We're a revolving door, but anywhere from mid-70s to 90.
Right, and what's your budget?
About 4 million, 4.2.
I mean, you hold a position of authority and trust, correct?
I do.
And you abuse that.
I wouldn't agree with that term. I don't feel like I abused anything. We've undergone many audits. There's nothing that's ever came up with how we are utilizing, spending money. Lots of individuals look into
I'm glad you
our
reminded.
department.
I'm glad you reminded me of that. Speaking of audits, you were keeping records regarding to compensatory time, correct?
They were on the drive.
Right, they were on the drive. They were on a record. Now, you weren't using the form that Mr. Smith talked about, correct?
Correct. Today was the first time I've ever seen such form.
Right, but you know that the district has a policy 8.11 regarding compensatory time, correct?
I'm aware of the policy.
And you're aware that some employees are exempt from compensatory time because of either their position or the amount of money they make, correct?
I mean, I know that there is exempt and non-exempt, but it's never like something that we've been trained on with the form.
And you never disclosed this compensatory time that you were keeping records of to either Colonel Stanger or your previous supervisor or Mr. Smith, did you?
My previous supervisor was aware of it, and anytime comp time has ever been brought up with HR, or anytime comp time, anything has ever been brought up by HR, is you have the autonomy to run your program, to staff your program. You know what's best for your program.
And you never submitted any of these comp time records to either Colonel Stanger or Mr. Smith, did you?
Colonel Stanger, since he's been here, no, we've not went over many things.
And so from an audit standpoint, if Stanger and Smith don't know about it, then the auditor's not gonna know about it, are they?
But it's a financial audit.
Right, but since
Financial auditors don't request leave reports.
you're not an auditor, are you?
No, but I am the one that they request the documents from. It either goes through the business office, Miss Edwards, or I deal with the auditors directly.
Well, if Stanger and Smith don't know about it, then the auditor might not know about it, right?
The auditors never asked for those specific documents.
You mentioned that you're pregnant. How far along are you?
8 months.
8 months, so that means, I'm not real good at math, but I'm guessing that means that you got pregnant maybe in September?
The way pregnancy works is they use your due date and your month based off the first day of your last period. Wow, biology session.
So you think you were pregnant maybe in October?
At the end of October,
Okay. Your divorce wasn't final until December, right?
if that's what online says.
That's what it says.
Final.
That's what it says online.
Okay.
You were separated by then, though, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So you got pregnant before your divorce was final?
Yes.
Okay. And who's the father?
Give them transparency. Give them transparency.
Mr. Clements.
And that's Mr. Clements back there?
Mhm.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. You didn't do any investigation that Clements, into the reports that Clements was drinking on the job, did you?
I had a conversation with him after it was reported to me days later.
Okay.
I had a conversation with him.
Did you interview any of the witnesses?
The witness, or the person who gave it to me, was Miss Bryant, and I don't think that Bo or I spoke about it.
Okay.
I don't think
Did
so.
you inform Human Resources?
No.
Okay. Now, drinking on the job or smelling of alcohol while working, would you agree that's a serious offense?
Yes.
Okay. When employees engage in serious offenses, serious misconduct, those are things you report to HR, right?
Right, but that's the process I've always taken. If something gets reported to me, I immediately have a conversation with that employee. Based on that conversation, would determine what the steps leading after that would be.
Okay. Tell this board how you're going to be able to conduct an unbiased investigation of a guy you're sleeping with.
That was prior.
That was prior.
That was prior.
Okay, well, there's witness testimony that these allegations of drinking and Josh smelling of alcohol on the job occurred this school year.
Yes.
But you say it was prior to the relationship?
Yes.
When did the relationship start between you and Mr. Clemens?
October.
Did you know Clemens before he was hired by the district?
I worked with him for a few years at the Department of Education.
Tell this board how you think anyone could believe that you could be unbiased toward Clemens while you're sleeping with him.
I just, again, put the job and the kids first, and that everything that I try to do would have been how I would treat everybody. Like with the leave, if he requested a day off, just like anybody else, I pretty much said yes, unless it was first 2 weeks of school, last 2 weeks of school, or it was a big day in our department. As far as mileage, I conducted that the way that everything else is conducted. He's not the only one that receives mileage in the office. It's the same process. He does most of the school-to-school visits. His mileage amounts from since he started haven't fluctuated. It's not been out of the norm for him to go to school visits. I don't feel ever, the only two pieces of the spreadsheet of the comp log in here are ours, but everyone in the office has a page on that spreadsheet. It's logged. They let me know the dates and times and reasons for it, and it gets logged. I really just tried to keep things normal and consistent, which is my belief why nothing and was a shock to people, and why nothing was brought before until my ex-husband got into the mix.
Ms. Dennis, you seem to be an intelligent young woman. Why didn't you disclose your relationship with Clemens immediately to your supervisor?
I really feel like anything I could say would be an excuse, because I should have known to do that immediately. I think it was just a high emotional time. My whole life was changing, even though I do try to separate personal and professional careers, but my ex-husband and I had been together for 16 years. It was really, really hard. And so that whole time of my life was coming to an end, and then potentially this was occurring, and didn't know how things would go, where it would lead. And it's not that I didn't want to. I knew that that I needed to. It was I really don't have an answer of why I did it 100% in the beginning.
Now, as the director of the department, you're responsible for evaluating people that report directly to you, correct?
Correct.
And that's part of district policy. You're aware of that, right?
Correct.
Okay. And I guess by the time you were placed on leave pursuant to this investigation, you hadn't gotten around to conducting Clemens' evaluation, right?
I hadn't completed any evaluations.
All right, so tell this board how you're gonna be able to conduct an objective, authentic evaluation of a subordinate that you're sleeping with.
I wouldn't. I think when it came down to evaluation time, I would have needed and had to disclose that, or designated another individual to do that. I knew that that's one thing that was in policy that I could not directly complete that evaluation. It had to be completed by a designated person.
Okay, so was there anybody between you and Clements in the hierarchy of the department?
No.
So how were you gonna have somebody, you were gonna have somebody
Well, that would have been
under,
a
excuse me,
that
or
w-
you were gonna have somebody underneath Clements evaluate him?
that would have been a conversation I would have had to have with Mr. Smith of how to navigate that.
Okay. No further questions, thank you.
Mr. Boddicker, follow?
Nothing.
All right. I'm gonna open it up to questions. from the board, I'm gonna say, let's keep it kind of tight.
I stood on this end, Mr. Taylor.
No questions.
Ms. Morgan,
I think I'm all set.
Ms. McLean. Ms. Simple. Ms. West.
I just hope you're keeping yourself healthy throughout this. And that's all I have to say on that. But I do remember a time that you did question me about somebody bringing to your attention, remember, at a particular school. I went down and ate lunch with the kid, and I told you I left my purse down in the office.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you asked me about a certain situation, and we talked about it. But I just didn't have my purse with me, but I did make sure I gave that $5 to the cafeteria that day,
Yeah.
later on in the day. So I just want to make sure that you did put it out there. You did ask me about it. So
Yes.
Is that it? All right.
I can think of some more now if you're going to keep them. No.
No, I was gonna try and focus us back on questions.
Yeah, I'm through.
Okay, thank you. All right. Mr. Boddicker, any follow-up from the board's questions?
No.
Mr. Beckett?
No.
Any further witnesses, Mr. Boddicker?
No.
All right. Then that'll conclude the evidentiary presentation. We'll move to closing statements. Mr. Beckett will go first since the district has the burden.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Board, well, your lawyer's old, you can tell from the wrinkles in my face and my hair. We've had a few of these cases over the years in some districts. I don't think here. There have been a few of them. Usually they don't end up coming to a hearing, but here we are. I'm going to close with just a brief reference back to the handbook. And, you know, we put such an ethical obligation and a duty, a trust in all of our employees, actually. But the higher up the chain you go, the more powerful and strong that trust is. And there just have to be consequences for breaching that trust. As sympathetic as Ms. Dennis may be in her current situation and, you know, the things that she's done for the district, these are tough decisions for you as board members, the toughest. I get that. But she just cannot go back and run that department. She just doesn't have the credibility. She's breached that duty. And I think and will ask that you accept Dr. Paluski's recommendation to terminate Ms. Dennis's employment tonight. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Boddicker.
I don't know how old Mr. Beckett is. I'm quite a bit younger. I've made some snafus here. I've not been in this situation before. To prepare for this, I actually went through school board meetings that Mr. Beckett's firm has handled on behalf of districts where it has defended principals who are sleeping with teachers and has talked about what's illegal versus maybe a violation of policy.
Well, those must have been Mayor Keyes's.
Certainly.
Those
I said
weren't
the
mine.
firm. I said the firm.
Okay, that was Mayor Keyes.
The letter itself states that she violated Title VII and Title IX. There's no evidence of it. The investigation was probably, I think they attempted to be thorough by sending someone to her house in the middle of the night. It was not thorough from the lack of witnesses. We have several general allegations of dislike for a supervisor. We'll find that in any workplace. None of them are specifically for this time period, saying there's been a conflict of interest. There's been a lot of talk about transparency and light to the darkness. We've not tried to hide anything from you all. There was never complaints prior to this anonymous call, which I'm sure is from the ex-husband. There was never complaints. No one ever brought any of this that's coming up in the last 5 weeks that's allegedly been going on for 6 months. Truly, none of it came out until this investigation where these individuals' bosses are asking them questions about their supervisor. Ms. Dennis has tried to do a lot for the school. I'm not going to claim she's perfect. I truly believe she tried to read this policy and abide by it. I'm not saying she made the best decisions. I think there's a reason this policy is being retooled and respecified. But I do think this district and the children here are going to lose a really valuable asset if this termination is upheld. And thank you all for your time. I'm sorry to take up so much of it tonight.
All right, thank you. Mr. Beckett, last word?
Nothing further.
All right, it'll be time to go into executive session for the board to consider the recommendation. No, so let me get closing. I'm sorry. We've been through this enough, I assume you know. I do have forms for the board. You have the 3 options to accept, reject, or modify the recommendation. So I have those forms. You've heard the spiel before, so I'll let her take it. The only thing I ask, I don't comment on the evidence or what decision you should make, but if you're going to make a modification, I ask that you step out and visit with me to make sure it's doing what you want it to do. Decide who's going to make.
You can actually go back in there with it now.
Well, that's true. I can go back in there with you now. I do ask that you decide who's going to make the motion and get all that final before we come out to you. All right, thank you. having returned from executive session, what's the pleasure of the board?
I move that the school board of the North Lark School District accepts the superintendent's recommendation that the employment contract of Miss Mary Lee Dennis is terminated.
Second.
It has been properly moved and second that the school board for the North Florida School District accept the superintendent's recommendation that the employment of contract of Ms. Mary Lee Dennis be terminated. Roll call, Ms. Rhonda. Reluctantly, I accept.
Aye. Aye.
Ms. Walker?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
No.
Ms. Temple?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
No.
Ms. Person West?
No.
4-3.
Yes.
So it's 4-3 to approve the recommendation of the superintendent.
Motion passed.
Motion passed. I'm sorry, I'm emotional right now.
That's all right.
Motion passed.
Any further business of the board?
To adjourn.
Madam President,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
so move that we adjourn.
Second.
Second.
It has been properly moved that we adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.